Hey everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 329 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the podcast and the founder of Sifted. Alongside me today, my two co-hosts to talk about games. It's Matt and Luna Kyle. Luna always there. She is a regular part of the crew now. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys have had a great week. It's been kind of a slow week for video games, actually. Not a lot of big releases, although there is one that the review embargo dropped on yesterday that we're gonna discuss. Not really the game. We're gonna discuss the reviews of it and reviews in general, game reviews in general. I think that should be a really interesting discussion. But otherwise, it's been a pretty slow week. We have a little bit of a lull here, and then February kicks into gear starting next week. Obviously, next week's show will have Hogwarts Legacy. We did not get the game early enough to have it in today's show. The embargo just broke yesterday, but we'll have it in plenty of time for next week's show. In fact, I think probably around Wednesday, I'll start playing it. So there's a chance I may put up a little something for our patrons of my impressions before the game actually goes into GameFace and next Tuesday. We'll see how that goes. But obviously that's the big releases coming up here. And then the rest of February, we have great stuff to talk about. So the shows are going to be rocking. Matt, how's your week been going?
All right. Pretty quiet, really.
Yeah.
Been replaying Spider-Man on PC because that went on sale. So.
And because you have that beastly PC and you want to play everything on it that you can.
Well, yeah, now I can turn it all up to max.
Yeah.
You can, the dumbest, best ray tracing trick is you can see all of Times Square reflected in his eye goggles.
In his goggles.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
And it's all moving, and it's ridiculous.
So it's not faked or anything. It's real time.
Actually, I don't even need to use the DLSS on that game. It runs at like 100 and something frames a second.
With everything maxed out.
Everything on.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, not surprising.
Yeah.
Some you have clean code.
Some of it, I mean, and the Cyberpunk update that just went up actually cleaned a lot of stuff up, and it runs way smoother now, like even on the 4090. So the 4090 can do 130 frames a second at 4K with Cyberpunk now.
What is, maybe you figured it out because you have your new rig, what is the most demanding game that you can run on a PC?
I don't know. I mean, I would imagine...
Have you gone back and run Crysis? Old benchmark?
I would imagine that it's probably something weird like Minecraft with like Infinity Horizon on it or something.
A game where you can choose a setting.
It can be things that are like just don't work properly. Like the game that's made the fans spin up the hardest is Company of Heroes 1.
Really?
Because something about Company of Heroes 1 does not like modern hardware, and you go and turn everything up and you do the performance test and the fans go crazy, but it runs at like 20 FPS. And it looks horrible
on your $5,000 rig.
Well, it's a problem with the game.
right.
The engine doesn't.
It's so crazy that even your rig can't brute force it. You know,
well, because it literally stops itself.
Yeah.
Like the engine is something about it. So you have to go into the INI and like basically force it's a refresh thing, and so you have to switch the refresh rate to something modern because it works at 24 by default if it can't detect something else. Rise of the Tomb Raider has that problem too. The original Tomb Raider, the definitive edition Tomb Raider, had that problem where it defaults to 24 hertz, like refresh rate. So you max everything out and you play it, and it's like this choppy 24. Like I know you're like, what is? And the computer's like going crazy because when the results come back, it says that it's running like 350 frames a second. And I'm like, what? But it's only updating the image 24 times, so it's kind of working against itself. So those are the things that have made it work the hardest.
Interesting. Just broken games.
I would say the only game running properly that has actually pushed it, that has pushed the temperature up above like 56 degrees Celsius is Warframe.
Really?
The open areas in Warframe, like you can hear it spin up.
Dirty code.
A little bit. I mean, it's Digital Extremes. Yeah. Plus, like all the different people there and all that. I mean, there's a lot happening. It's loading a bunch of people's stuff in.
Right.
Because it's multiplayer. It's
the all the cosmetics,
the MMO areas, basically. So yeah, that is kind of the hardest it's worked.
Interesting.
Like,
you never would have guessed it would be Warframe, would you, people?
Yeah. At that level of power, it feels like unoptimized stuff is much harder on it than like demanding stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like because you say whatever you want about how demanding Cyberpunk is, it's at this point it's pretty efficient.
Yeah. Well, they've worked on it now for 2 years post-launch, so it better be.
And the latest update was specifically for the 40 series cards and like DLSS 3 and all
made a
that
big
stuff.
difference.
But I turned it off on Spider-Man because
DLSS.
Because it didn't in the end it didn't need it, but also. It didn't like it. Spider-Man didn't like it. Like it was doing some like an interpolation thing that was making things a little weird. Like it was over sharpening stuff when it panned the camera, and all the animals like the rats and the pigeons left trails.
Oh wow!
Behind them.
Interesting.
And so when you turn DLSS off, it stops doing that.
Otherwise, DLSS is like witchcraft. It's amazing.
Kind of black magic, but there's some elements and I think they just fixed it. Not they didn't fix it. Control had a problem where if you turn DLSS on, lighting on certain surfaces would look like a disco ball. Basically, it would blindingly bright. And then this past week, one of the former developers actually put out an in-game like an HDR patch, an unofficial HDR patch that lets you go. And you just replace a bunch of the game files in the install with it, and it fixes a bunch of stuff. Like it's not even like a reshader like cover up thing. It's this guy because this guy worked on the game, so it's actually in the game files.
Interesting.
And it fixes a whole lot of weird lighting and HDR problems.
Cool.
So that was I did play a little bit of that and that's a more subtle thing where it's like the lighting in the hallways is really good. And like once everything goes crazy, you can see it. But it's not one of those things you could show like a casual gamer and have them react to how amazing it looks, because it's more like a subtle like, oh, look at how everybody's shaded the way they. It's not like swinging through Times Square in Spider-Man and you're like, yeah, everything's reflected. And in this one, by the way, when you turn everything way up on the PC version, everything's there. It's not like the PS5 where like some of the cars are there, some of the it's all there, and it's all moving at full speed and not choppy. And it's just like that's crazy to the point that it's almost unrealistic. But there are some buildings that are dirty. Yeah, and it's crazy.
It is crazy. You were showing me some games, like you showed me Cyberpunk, which is just like mind blowing. You showed me Red Dead 2, mind blowing.
You know, the other game that's very impressive that I didn't remember I had until I remembered I'd gotten it free from the Epic Game Store, Death Stranding.
No, I'm sure it looks great too.
Death Stranding looks astounding. Like I
bet it does.
It's unbelievable. Like
lots of green.
So I lots of green, but also like the creature the handprints and the water filling them, and you know,
you see what they were supposed to look like.
I mean, Norman Reedus, way too detailed looks at Norman Reedus.
You can smell him.
The hair is very well done. The draw distance, the how it's much more obvious with the high end graphics, like. As the paths change, as people build the things, you can see other like the player bridges like a mile away. Like you know exactly distance. Where you need to go. You don't need the map as much because you can recognize the terrain further out. Because
it actually changes the way you play the game.
Yeah. It's and then you hit a point where it's just fucking bullshit. And
you have to actually play the game.
Yeah. Well, I played it for a while. I'm like, okay, I remember this being kind of fun. It's just like they know what it is because every once in a while it pulls way back and it plays one of Kojima's MP3s he loves, and I'm like, okay, you're really into this band when you made this. But you hit a point where they teach you how to do all the things, and then you're expected to take care of the BTs like on your own, I guess. And I hit a point where I was trying to make this delivery, and I tried 7 times, and every single time I just got caught by them, and I don't know why. Like I'm not near one, I'm going between them just like I always do. I'm covering my mouth, I'm not breathing, and all of a sudden, and like usually you see the handprints come in and they catch you. You get stuck in the tar and the hand. The tar just opens. It just opens up and I'm stuck. And there was no handprints. There's no catch moment.
It sounds like a bug.
Maybe, but I tried it all these different angles and different ways, and it was like almost like a scripted thing. But I know it's not a scripted thing. It's just a random mission. It's not a story mission.
Weird.
So I don't. And every time I just be like, fuck you. And so I still hate that game. But it looks so good, and that engine looking so good makes me really look forward to an eventual Horizon Forbidden West PC.
Yeah.
Because I bet that's going to be amazing.
It will be, yeah. It's always fun when you get a new PC or you build a new PC or you improve your PC, diving back into PC gaming again. Because I'll build something, I'll get into PC gaming for a little while, and then after a while, it kind of loses its allure, and I end up going and spending more time on my consoles. But it's always fun having that re-engagement period with PC gaming.
I looked, Steam has the thing that like lists all your games by release date, and I looked, and leaving aside remasters or games that were on a deep sale because they were older, I bought 4 new games for PC last year.
4. That's 4 more than I bought.
Yeah.
Now you're going to buy more, though.
Well, I mean, in terms of like games that came out in 2022, I bought 4 games that had come out in 2022 for the PC.
That's more than I bought.
Which is nothing.
Right. And I bought none, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, I got code from publishers, but I didn't buy any. Yeah. So, good to see Matt diving back in.
I'm still going to sit... I'm still going to probably focus on console stuff more because, honestly, the console releases tend to be less technical snafus.
Yeah, you don't always have to, like, fiddle around. Like, they just run.
Yeah, it's like they just go, and maybe they don't run as well and they don't look as good, but at least I'm not spending the first hour trying to figure out why the shader doesn't load properly.
Do I need to get a new driver for my card?
Yeah.
Like it,
or do I need to roll the driver back because the NVIDIA's new driver was actually a lie? That happened?
Or it's ahead of the curve that this game
the game wasn't ready for that,
right?
And so they optimized it wrong.
There are drawbacks.
It's
advantages and drawbacks, but you're right. Like ultimately, I will sacrifice the slight bumps in fidelity just to know it's going to work and run.
Right now, it's kind of like, Spider-Man is a good example where it's like one of the best things about a good high-end PC is like being able to go back after all the bugs are ironed out and after everything's figured. The community's got their patches up.
Yeah.
The devs got their patches done. It's sort of finished, and you can go back to your favorite things like Spider-Man,
and they look better, and they look
great.
Better,
they look as good as they're going to look, and like it's a kind of a fresh start. Because I'll tell you what's weird though, is playing that with an Xbox controller.
I bet
that took a while.
The muscle memory.
Well, also because I didn't even think about it until I played it like this. I don't think I ever really noticed, but when you're doing the stealth sequences, you can do the web zip one-shot kill, or you can do the stealth web them up, the perch takedown thing. And the colors, you can scan and see if they're safe or in danger, but the determining fact, the little icon thing that shows you whether you can either perch take down them or web zip take them down, the icons are just green and pink because they correspond to the triangle button and the square button on the PlayStation controller, and on the Xbox controller, those buttons are yellow and blue.
Right.
So the color coding doesn't make any sense anymore. And I was like, why are the colors like that? I'm like, oh, right, because there's a PlayStation controller. Yeah. I never even put that together before.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's smart. That's smart UI from Insomniac right there.
It is, yep. I would argue it's never been a better time to be a PC gamer. Pretty much everything now is coming in, even exclusives. Who would ever thought PlayStation exclusives would be coming to PC?
Unless outside of Nintendo, you're pretty much good.
You're good. Yep. You have to wait a little while for some games,
Sony,
but you don't even have to wait that long anymore.
Yeah.
That's what's really blowing my mind.
I think
how quickly
Sony definitely also learned. Horizon didn't launch very well on PC, but I don't think that's really been an issue since then. Like God of War seemed to do fine.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that yet because I ain't paying.
Death Stranding.
I'm paying $50 again. For that. But when it goes on sale, I'll get it. Sure.
Yeah. Eventually, you'll get it.
Eventually, I'll want to play that again, and
and you'll get it for $10.
The other thing that looks amazing on there is Hellblade.
Yeah, he showed me that too on his PC. It looked like a different game.
Yeah.
It's like that's not the Hellblade I played
just the
on
detail on her
Xbox
character
One.
model. It's incredible.
It really is. Yeah. So anyway, Matt diving back into PC gaming. You gotta love to see it.
I'm spending too much time in that room though. I need to go out.
You need to go out.
It's just been me and a space heater basically, and Luna.
I kind of like that though, honestly. For a while,
but it's been like a week.
Yeah, for a while. Then it gets to where you're at.
Moments where I come out of it's the thing where you go in there and you play stuff and you're answering emails and sitting around. And then when you come out again, it's dark.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
We're also at the point where it's getting dark at 5 p.m. So
it's getting better. It's
now getting to
shortest day is over. We'll be there.
Yep. I'll say this. We probably, for the last few weeks, should have brought back the Big Six. I don't know if some of you guys may not remember if you didn't watch GameFace when it first launched, but we used to have this thing called the Big Six at the beginning of each episode where we would talk about 6 smaller stories that didn't deserve their own topics in the show, or they weren't able to supply enough discussion to be a full topic in the show. In the last few weeks, there's been tons of little stories. Again this week, there's a ton more. And we're going to get to those before we get into the show proper. First up, Matt, Sony announced that PlayStation Plus, the PlayStation Plus collection, is going to be cut off for PlayStation 5 owners. Matt, are you familiar with what the PlayStation Plus collection is.
Yeah, it's that here's a bunch of PS4 games
Yeah.
for PlayStation Plus owners because we don't have a launch lineup worth talking about.
Yeah.
Really, and we won't for a while.
I actually went back and looked at them last night just to kind of prep for this brief discussion, and I was actually surprised. There are a good many third-party games in there now.
It's a good lineup. It was a solid piece of lineup. And I mean, maybe I'm making it up, but like I always thought this was temporary.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember when I got my PS5, I remember adding them all to my library. The ones I didn't have because I had most of them because they are pretty essential.
Yeah,
picks,
they're all like exclusives for PlayStation and
I God of War 1 and and I think Horizon's in there
and Ratchet.
It's staples.
Yeah.
Staples of the PlayStation library. And so I went, but the ones I didn't have, I went and I remember I added them to my library because I'm going to grab these before they go away because I figured they were going to go away. I don't remember if I just assumed they would or if they had said this was a temporary thing at the time. I can't remember, but I do remember getting them the first day I had my PS5 because I assumed that would not be forever.
Well, now that's what you all should be doing. So if you have PlayStation Plus, you should go and you should claim all those games.
And it is forever if you have PlayStation Plus. Like once you add them to the library,
they're there forever.
You have them as long as your PlayStation Plus subscription works.
But this collection will not be there forever. And it is literally, as Matt said, all the biggest exclusives from PlayStation for the PS4 era, pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean, look, I would imagine people watching our show probably have all these games already for the most part.
I noticed that I had them all.
Yeah.
I literally had them all already.
Yeah.
And they were ones that I'd either bought or publisher sent me the review code for or whatever.
I mean, I think I maybe didn't have 3 of them or something. I can't remember what they were.
If you're
they were things that they were third-party things I had on Xbox or PC. Like they were not games I didn't want. They were just.
If you're an avid gamer, you probably have the bulk of them.
Yeah, certainly if you had a PlayStation 4, you probably had 70-80% of these things.
Yeah, but you should go and snag them. I mean, go and look at the collection. Make sure that you already have all that stuff. You may have claimed them in some of the games, ended up being freebies during the PlayStation Plus giveaways for certain months. So you may have some of them, but make sure you go back and claim them. And again, this is for PlayStation 5 owners. So if you own a PS5, go check the PlayStation Plus collection. Make sure that you have all the games there. Add them to your library. And as long as you remain a subscriber of PlayStation Plus, those games will always be there going forward for you to download. So go do that now if you haven't already. Something else that happened this week that was a little odd. It was kind of leaked out through I think it was it Microsoft's official store? I'm not 100% sure how it got out. But it leaked out that Microsoft was about to close down the Xbox 360 marketplace in May. People started freaking out. Microsoft then came out and said, no, that's not happening, blah, blah, blah. It feels like it was going to happen, and they saw the backlash and decided that they weren't going to do that.
Bizarre, because who the fuck has turned a 360 on in the last 5 years? Like,
yeah.
But, like, yeah, I mean, I don't...
Does that affect at all if, like, so with the backwards compatibility stuff for Xbox Series, it wouldn't affect, hey, I have this Xbox 360 game, I have the disc, shove it in there, it needs to go download the game? It wouldn't affect that at all?
It wouldn't even affect buying Xbox 360 games digitally on Xbox One. It would only be shutting down access to the store on the 360.
Okay. That's not such a big deal then.
No, it's nothing. It's sunsetting dead hardware. That's all it is. Like, theoretically, I guess you would maybe have a problem. I mean, if you cut off the online, it doesn't even sound like cutting off online access. You'd still be able to download digitally owned games on the 360. You just wouldn't be able to go on the store and buy anything new with that system. But theoretically, you could still buy 360 stuff and Xbox originals on Xbox One and Xbox Series. And then probably because they're attached to your account, you could probably go on a 360 and download them for the 360. You just wouldn't be able to buy it directly through the 360.
Okay.
And so, I can't remember the last time I bought anything through the 360. So.
Yeah, I mean, my 360's been in a box in my closet for the last, 7 years. I haven't even...
And the thing, they were saying they were going to delist some games. That might still be happening. Like, I think Jet Set Radio was the only one that, popped out at me because that's the only game I cared about, I think, on the list. But I also already own it, so it doesn't really matter. So it sounds like the delistings will probably still happen, but it doesn't sound like they're shutting the store down.
Yep. Rock and Roll 458 says, it won't affect what Shane is talking about, but certain Xbox 360 games are being delisted. I got Daytona USA and Jet Set Radio. I think this is the final day to get those from Xbox Live Arcade. So if you're watching this right now, you might want to go check that out and make sure before they're gone you can snag them. For people watching the archive, it sounds like it's going to be too late by the time you're watching this on Wednesday, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Still might be worth going.
As Erebus Jones knows, one of the other big ones is the Orange Box.
Oh.
Which is available only through the 360. That's not backwards compatible.
Oh,
so
snap.
If for some reason you want the Orange Box on 360 digitally, you better do it now.
And again, that won't affect whether you can get it later on.
No, you'll still be able to download whatever you own.
Okay. So this is really not really a topic, just more of a public service announcement to those of you who maybe have big Xbox 360 libraries or games that you had or you downloaded back in the day that you want to make sure that they're not gone from your account forever. Just something you want to check on. Another smaller story from this week. Back 4 Blood is already done, Matt. They have decided that they are not...
They weren't back very long.
They really weren't back. Back for not long is what they should have called the game. I really thought
back for the weekend.
Yeah. I really thought this was going to go for like years and years.
I bet they did too.
And do you think it was just a lack of interest that is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen how many games as a services have we seen collapse in the last week or 2 weeks? Like
you're
9,
right.
10.
A lot. Why is that, you think?
Because they all became finally unsustainable, and this is the time of year where you admit that you need to like cut things back, and things are not going to work out. So it's time.
New Year's resolutions, you mean?
Cut and run.
Cut, bait, and run.
I mean, Steph Sterling has basically been declaring victory
week after week.
Well, no, on their new video, Steph's like, yeah, I called, like I said, this was unsustainable.
Yeah,
and it was gonna not. There was no revenue model here, and that, by the way, is you talking
about Back 4 Blood in general?
No, they're talking about games as a service.
Games as a service in general.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Avengers is the biggest kind of I told you so on that one for Sterling, but like they're talking about all the game as a service stuff that's coming down around everybody's ears. It's because there's no revenue model there. Like you're depending on a very small percentage of people to pay these microtransactions for cosmetic stuff, and it just doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that is a constant, by the way, a constant corporate. Like when you see me get like really like huffy about the Stadia thing, it's like these are just corporate suits that can't be told no. That's why these things happen. They see this thing that was a big deal. They see that Destiny's super popular or that Final Fantasy 14 is taken off or anything like that. And they're like, we need that. Right. It's like, yeah, but you know who is the people that would make that a big hit for you? The same people that are already playing these other things.
Yeah, you got to pull them away.
So you don't need to just make a good game. You need to make a game that's so good that people will play that instead of the thing they're already invested in. And that is a very difficult task.
That's a really good point, Matt. That is really hard to pull somebody away from their main.
Yeah, because people only have so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
And, like, that happens a lot. You're seeing that with streaming right now. The streaming, like, linear stream, like film and TV streaming, where, like, you're seeing all these, Netflix and Disney Plus to some degree and Hulu. Like, they're all starting to realize they've spent billions of dollars and there's no revenue stream at the end of this. Like... subscriptions have that's why Netflix is doing the password sharing crackdown thing, because they think that they can make everybody subscribe separately and get more money. But like you're seeing, this is the esports thing again. It's like this corporate frenzy to get in on this perceived market, but at the end of the road, you're like, oh, there's no actual way to make money here.
I think it took longer to get to this point than people thought. Because if you remember, look at Pactor. Pactor raged on Netflix for years.
Yeah.
And he was the outlier. And everyone's, you're crazy. He was like telling people not to buy the stock and blah, blah, blah. And I guess in some ways they were right, because it did take a long time for this stuff to happen that Pactor said was going to happen. And now it is all happening.
Yeah, it's all coming down around us. And like the same thing with like, you're seeing just like there's a weird desperation for trying to squeeze more money out of people. And no one knows how to, like the suits don't know how to approach it. And like you're seeing this right now, like starting today. You're seeing this with AMC, which is trying to start this thing where the tiered
scaling
pricing.
the seats, the charges for seats.
So premium seats more in the center of the theater are going to be more. The side seats are going to be what the prices are now, and the front row and ADA seats are going to be less.
Oh wait, they're increasing. I thought they were leaving the price for the middle the same.
No, the middle will be increasing
more.
Because that's what this is. It's a price increase on tickets. That's it.
It is. Yeah.
But instead of look, if you up the price of general admission tickets tickets for movies by $2, no one would fucking notice.
You want to know what happened, though, Matt?
It would just be a thing that happened but instead, they're making it a fucking brand deal. Like, they're naming it.
You want to know what happened, though, Matt?
It's called Sightline. It's called AMC Sightline, and you pay premium or standard and I'm like,
you sit in the front. It's only $8.
Why are you holding a giant neon sign that says we're about to gouge you more for something that you've always paid the same for? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, what happened?
Elijah Wood went after them today, and I'm like, yeah, that's all going to go away by the end of the week. Like,
well, I saw that. I mean, to me, I think what happened is after COVID, they're going into the theaters and they're seeing every theater they go into, it's 2/3 full, and there's this group of people in the middle that radiates out from the middle, and they're like, if this is the only amount of people we can get to go watch movies now, we have to charge them more money. I mean, let's be honest. If they're not selling out the theaters anymore, how are they going to stay in business unless they increase the price of the people?
Well, the price, because movie theaters don't make money from the tickets; they make money from the concessions.
Yeah.
Like, and apparently, I don't get stuff to eat when I go to the movies. I'm there to see a fucking movie.
Yeah, I may get one drink.
I might get a drink. If I haven't eaten anything all afternoon, maybe I'll get a hot dog, like whatever. But in general, if I want to eat something, I'm going to eat something better than movie theater.
I'm going to eat and then go to the movie.
Yeah, or that too, or after the movie.
Yeah,
like I rarely have planned so poorly that I end up having to eat theater food.
Yeah.
But, clearly there's people for that. It's like,
you see most people, they're like this walking into the theater.
You're like, I know the movie starts in 3 minutes.
That's like $150 you just spent there.
I know the movie starts in 3 minutes, and it's my fault we're so late, but I'm going to stand in this 38-person line to pay $13 for a Coke. I'll see you in there. I'm like, okay, have fun.
You're going to miss the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Don't fucking talk to me when you get in here because the movie's already happening.
Yeah. So you're right, though. That's interesting. And I think the other thing, too, that's interesting about Back 4 Blood in particular is that it was a big Xbox Game Pass game. Like, it built a huge audience on Game Pass out of the gate, and it appears it didn't hold. And I guarantee you a ton of publishers are looking at that and being like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, you made a little money off the top, but it didn't pan out in the long term.
It's not a coincidence that we'll get it. I think that's the next thing, but like Dragon Age... The leak on Dragon Age 4. Yep,
nice segue. You can go right
started as a multiplayer game. It was going to be like Destiny.
Did you see the leaked footage?
Yeah. I mean, it's ancient. It's like a year old.
I mean...
It's alpha.
I hope to God it is, because it looked bad.
I mean, look, I'm not judging that footage by anything because it's very old and it's far from complete. But, also aside from that, I don't... Yeah, everyone's like, oh, it plays like God of War. I'm like, in the sense that like
Golden Axe stuff.
In the sense Golden Axe Beast Rider plays like God of War. Like, I don't think you're gonna get God of War combat out of BioWare.
Well, watching that footage, again, I don't know when that bill was from, but it had a long way to go to reach God of War status with the combat.
We're never supposed to see that.
I get it.
But
I'm surprised they let people play that, Matt. Are you not?
I mean, you got to test stuff.
Man.
You got to start somewhere.
The crazy part to me was seeing the Dragon Age fans being like, hey, I like it. Like, I think it's cool.
Well, Nintendo test stuff is just big blocks.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be fun without any bells and whistles. So I don't care about the graphical choices there. They're trying to do an action RPG combat system, which is really where they've been moving for a long time. I mean, Mass Effect already did that. When they started with Mass Effect, it was a shooter. It was an action-based shooter. It was, there's some stats under there, but still, it was a shooter. And one of the things that Dragon Age has struggled with is whether to be a successor to the Baldur's Gate Infinity Engine stuff or whether to move into being a more hack and slash kind of game. And you see these half measures they took on that in Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. And frankly, I think they should have moved to something more like this with Inquisition already. But you're struggling with Frostbite. You're struggling with, balancing that kind of combat. Like, struggling
was a great word to use after watching that footage. And I was like,
yeah,
whoa.
You definitely see that. And I've talked to a bunch of, some Dragon Age hardcore Dragon Age fans, and honestly, most of them don't care about the gameplay.
Yeah,
they will
the lore, the story.
They will put up with whatever combat system BioWare forces them to put up with, as they have done for 3 games now, because they want the story and they want the.
Bless you.
They want the characters. Like, as long as the story's good, they don't care what they have to play to get it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think BioWare could make Dragon Age 4 a visual novel and appeal to the core Dragon Age fan base just fine. They just wouldn't sell the number of copies to the mainstream audience they need to survive and make Mass Effect 5 is basically what we're looking at here.
Yeah.
It does tell us that game is not this year.
Oh no. I mean, I hope not.
I mean, that game is the footage again, very old.
Yeah. It's a little weird that it's coming out now.
I mean, that's what you get hold of. You get what you get.
Yeah, but I mean, if you read through like the Reddit thread, the guy who reported on it was not the person who played it. His buddy had been in the beta or the alpha. It was an alpha, I believe, and he had got the footage and all the information from his buddy, who didn't want to put himself in peril basically by releasing the information himself. And it didn't sound like it was really all that long ago that his buddy was playing.
Oh, I don't think the test was
the build. You're saying
the build
was
is
old.
Ancient.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, the build.
I
is
hope to
ancient.
God it was.
I don't think it matters. It's again, the polish on games is put on last.
Yeah,
like you can't judge anything in that by anything.
Yeah,
that is almost all of that is placeholder.
It looks really rough. So
it is rough. Like that's, I mean, that's early focus testing for a game that doesn't come out for 2 more years. Like that's. Yeah. You're not playing anything resembling a finished product.
Yep, that's
so
good
I'm not worried about anything in that clip from that.
Okay.
My concern is like, are they going to be able to make an action-based combat system that's worth anything? Because BioWare has never managed to do that with not Melee anyway.
Yeah.
Like hand to hand. Like, yeah, obviously Mass Effect has one place. I don't think you can argue that Mass Effect hasn't always moved forward, even in Andromeda. For all of Andromeda's problems, the shooting was good. Mm-hmm. The shooting actually did get better.
Yeah, it did. It improved.
It's always gotten better from game to game. Dragon Age has not. I don't like to be clear, I don't like Dragon Age 1. I think it's terrible, actually.
It seems like a lot of people in chat are saying it's like the best one.
Most people, especially fans of Dragon Age, think the first one's the best.
Yeah.
I think the first one is one of the most boring things I've ever played.
Yeah.
I think it's literally like someone just rearranged all the Tolkien high fantasy stuff and then stuck me with a I don't know, some kind of half measure version of the Baldur's Gate combat, and I hate playing Dragon Age 1.
Cinetyke says, remember the GTA 6 leak? When it comes out, let's see the difference. There were some shots in the GTA 6 leak where it looked fine. Like, it looked like how it's probably going to look.
Right, but GTA 6...
Like, wireframe...
No, nothing in that looked like how it's going to look.
I mean, there were a couple shots. Like,
no,
yeah,
none.
There were.
No.
Yep. You could go look... Okay, here we go again. I'm going to have to prove it again.
Those are all...
I'll bring it up right now.
Those are all... I'm surprised you don't have it loaded. Because we're going to be talking about that game for a long time.
I don't have the footage loaded, no. I didn't think it would be talking
about it looks better because it's running in GTA 5, basically. But there's no way that's going to look just like GTA 5 when it comes out.
There were, like, 3 or 4 shots, like 5-second snippet, 8-second snippets, or whatever, that were basically the game. And, like, here's one of the shots. And I'll bring it up so everyone can see it. That we used for the banner for the top of the page. That's pretty close to what the game's going to look like. Like, it's not that far. I mean, I'm just telling you, having looked at the Dragon Age footage is 50 miles away from how it's going to look when it's done. Some of the stuff in the leaks, pretty close to how the game's going to look.
Yeah, but they're doing it very differently.
And also, wireframe to me isn't like, oh, it looks bad. It's just dev footage. Like, the stuff in this Dragon Age stuff looked bad. Like,
yeah, because it's a work in progress in the Frostbite engine.
Yeah, I get it. I'm just saying that, like, to Cinetyke's point, there were some shots that were pretty indicative of how the game is going to end up looking.
I just don't think it's a comparison you can make, really. Like, also, I would imagine Rockstar has way better and more functional tools. Like, I think I've never heard anyone who has ever worked with it say a kind word about Frostbite.
Me either. They all hate it.
You don't hear Rockstar people complaining about working in the GTA engine very often.
No. Because they've been working in it for a really long time as well. So anyway.
Like, I just think, but again, like, that screenshot looks like a modded GTA 5 or basically Red Dead Redemption 2 if you turn everything up to max. And I do think GTA 6 is going to look a lot better than that.
I mean, I hope it does.
Like, I think it'd be subtle, but it'd be like, there's no way in the final game her shirt would be that plain. Like, you'd see fabric detail on it or something.
Yeah.
Like, but like or Dragon Age 4, like, I have trouble even believing those character models are even close to final. Like, it looks like they just pulled them out of Inquisition and
really
stuck
rough.
them in there, and they're just sort of trying to. I think because what I think you're looking at in the Dragon Age 4 footage is essentially. I mean, obviously they're putting assets in and dropping things in, and that's all sort of like cobbled together, whatever. I think you're looking at them trying to kind of come up with a combat system that feels good to play with. I don't know if obviously we can't play it, but I don't know what I looked at didn't like the guy jumping on the guy and popping off him again. That looked real weird.
It looked bad.
Well, also, that looked like that's probably a rogue move.
Yeah.
You would think, because it looked like a rogue.
A lot of it
thing.
just looked like placeholder.
I think all of it was placeholder for the most part, because the character that does it is in full armor.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. It looked like a paladin type that was doing like a bunch of hop on a guy and stab him in the neck thing. I don't think any of it was meant to be presented as that. I think it was literally a feel test. You were trying to feel, not field. But feel like you're like, how does this feel to play?
Yeah.
And if it does feel good to play, then we will worry about making it not look like ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a reason nobody wants you to see early footage of this stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Because and look, we used to see early footage. I mean, I played an early build. I don't even know if you'd fully call it alpha, but it was an early build of Dead Island 2 almost 10 years ago for a project that never saw the light of day. And you would have run and hid from it.
I mean, Matt, do you remember they used to send us preview builds?
Oh yeah,
that were like rough, and we would work with them because we needed.
Yeah, they'd rely on us to not show the really bad shit.
Right, but we needed it because we had 3 episodes a week of X-Play, and I'm like, look, I mean, I know it's only like 45 minutes long. I know if you go too far this way, the game break. Stay here and keep recording the footage because we need it to do shows.
I will say
they don't send that stuff out anymore.
The Dead Island 2 is the earliest version of anything I've ever seen leave a dev studio's building. Like, I can't believe they sent it to us.
It doesn't really happen like that anymore.
No, and it would never happen now because since then, like, you have stuff like this where everybody... I've never seen a fandom of a medium that knows so little about how it gets made.
Yeah,
and how it works.
Is interesting.
Because this stuff like this comes out and that
people
footage...
freak out.
That footage is going to color people's opinion of Dragon Age 4 until that game is released.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand...
It happened with GTA 6.
Yeah.
People were like, oh my god, that looks awful. It's like, hello...
I mean, but that's
Do you have any clue how people make video games?
That's also how people are now.
Should you expect them to, though? Probably not. Like... They just want to consume the games and play the games, you know?
Yeah, but also, like, there's nothing wrong with having a little media literacy, or even better, some self-awareness of that, the fact you don't know shit about shit.
Right. That's the more important part, because the hubris.
Yeah.
They don't want to admit that they don't know anything about it.
Right. And that's like the thing in film, that's when it's like everyone's like, oh, CG sucks, everything CG sucks, it's always better when it's in camera, over real. That's why Top Gun Maverick has over 2,000 digital effects in it.
Yeah.
But they were not allowed to tell anyone about them because they wanted everyone to think everything was real.
Right.
Quote unquote real.
Yeah. They fed the narrative that Tom was in the planes and
he was.
And he was.
Some of them. But some of it, you can't make planes do all that shit, or it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And it's like little things you got to do your thing that you need to save the money or make it look right. It was just one of the producers or cinematographer, I think, for The Menu just revealed yesterday or the day before that the first shot of the movie The Menu it's not fake, it's stock footage.
Oh.
It's stock footage. They recolored to look like the background the actress is in, and then it cuts the other side and it's Anya Taylor-Joy smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
The shot of her lighting the cigarette is stock footage.
That's
and one
great.
of the reasons you can tell is because she's using a Bic lighter to light the cigarette, and that character has a Zippo, very notably has a Zippo.
Right, that's
in the rest
part
of the
of the
movie.
plot.
But you don't know that yet when you watch the movie.
Yeah.
So that's what you way cheaper than doing a reshoot. Or like when someone asks, did you see the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special?
I did, yeah.
You know, at the end where everybody has the little statues that Groot makes for them?
Yeah.
So someone asked, because Sean Gunn, his brother, who reacts to the statue so well, someone asked, like, was that the first time Sean Gunn saw the statue of him? Is that why his reaction is so genuine? And James Gunn said, actually, all those statues are CG because we didn't know what the shots they were representing were going to look like yet. So he's just acting because he's that good. All those statues are CG. And they're like, why wouldn't it be cheaper or better just to make real statues for them? He's like, because we didn't know what those shots were going to look like yet. So it was actually cheaper and easier to replicate them in CG so they looked like the shot. So when you saw them, your brain would match them with the final shot that they were representing. And that was a better way of telling the story. And it's like, what I'm saying is, y'all don't know what the fuck you're looking at.
Yeah.
And that's
it's true.
like,
nobody wants to admit it, though.
No, and that's true in this Dragon Age footage too. We don't know what in that thing is going to be final.
Actually,
what is it?
part of the game.
Maybe Paladins jumping on someone's neck and poking them with a stick is going to be in the final game, and we're going to sit here and be like, I can't believe they left that shit in.
But probably not.
But probably not.
Yeah.
They'll probably tweak that a little bit.
Yeah. A couple other things before we get going. Right now, the Steam Next Fest is going on. It is running until February 13th. There are literally, I think I saw a figure, like over 200 demos are going to be released in the next week.
Like tons and tons.
A System Shock demo just went up today. If you want to check that out.
And there's a 3-hour demo for Midnight Suns now, which everybody should try if you haven't.
Absolutely.
Because that game apparently did not do well.
It tanked really hard, and it doesn't deserve it. So
critical success, sales failure.
Commercially not great.
So go play that. Go play the demo of that and see what you think, because I really like that one.
Yep. So that is happening until February 13th. Head over to Steam. There's just tons of stuff going on for the whole week. And then finally, we're shooting the next round of Pactor Factor. We would have shot it last week. However, Pactor was on vacation. And so we've had a little bit of a gap here in between episodes of Pactor Factor, but we're shooting more on Friday. And look for a call for questions in all the usual places here over the next couple days. You got to ask them at sifted.net. We'll ask for them on our Twitter feed. We'll ask for them at our Patreon account. You won't be able to miss it, but start getting your questions together for Pactor. We'll be shooting a new round of episodes on Friday.
Did you intentionally skip Nintendo?
Oh, also, that's right. Tomorrow, there is a Nintendo Direct going on as well. It's supposed to be 40 minutes, and it's going to focus on the first 6 months of the year. So only games that are coming out before June. Matt, I would venture to guess we're finally going to get the release date for Advance Wars Reboot Camp.
Yeah, well, there was a leak that basically was a leak thing from like people who got like store display things, and they said they got a Zelda one, and one of the ones they got was an Advance Wars available now that was supposed to go up next week.
Oh, well, there you go. So it's going to stealth launch tomorrow.
It sounds like it might shadow drop tomorrow or this weekend or something.
Okay, something to keep an eye on.
Because the standee that said that was supposed to go up on the 10th.
Okay. There you go. So looks like we're going to get that soon.
We might get Advance Wars this week.
Yeah. And as always, you can go to sifted.net. We'll have that curated for you guys so you can watch it on the site if you want to. But we'll probably be talking about it in next week's episode of GameFace. Although I think next week is going to be tight to fit that stuff in because we have a lot of big stuff to discuss. Okay. Mm-hmm. Probably should have had the big six.
Better hope they bring up Zelda or it's not coming out in May.
You think they'll bring up Zelda?
If they're talking about the first 6 months of the year, that's Zelda.
I feel like they're just going to give it its own direct.
I think they'll give it its own, but I think they're going to have to give you... believe me, everyone online thinks they're going to talk about Zelda.
Oh,
so
really?
They better have something about Zelda in there.
Probably a new trailer, I'd be
New
my
trailer,
guess.
little something, little character reveal. Like, not like the Blow. I'm sure it will get its own direct to itself, like in April or something. But like, no, I think they need to.
It's time. Yeah, it's time to start showing the game. We only have 2 trailers that hardly show anything.
Throw the kids a bone. Let them play a game.
Throw me a bone. Let's see. That's it for our not big 6 for this week's episode.
I was talking this morning to some of my friends online about, and they're like, "Oh, Zelda." I'm like, I just want to play a fucking Zelda game again. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sail a boat. I don't want to travel through time. I don't want to waggle a Wiimote. I don't want to catch a train. I don't want to turn into a wolf. I just want to I want 8 dungeons and a bunch of upgrades, and that's it. Like
the biggest thing they could announce tomorrow is dungeons.
Yeah, and just give me a Zelda game.
That would just set the world on fire.
Yeah.
That's all they need to say.
There's 8 dungeons in this game.
Done. People dance in the streets.
Awesome.
Breath
of the Wild, but we remember to put dungeons in this time. You could have called it that. And
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I don't. Tears of the Kingdom is fine too, but like.
Agreed. Yep. Before we get going, we need to mention our sponsor, LS Cream. See the bottles sitting here. They are a cream liqueur, a little bit like Bailey's, but much better. You can go to creamls.com, learn about the history of the drink. It is actually from a recipe from his Haitian grandmother. The person who makes LS Cream is a sifter, a hardcore gamer just like you. Make sure you support him. Also at creamls.com, there is a store finder. And what you should do is you should buy people bottles of LS Cream for Valentine's Day. Or buy one for yourself, take it over for your date, and have a good time on Valentine's Day. But anyway, head to creamls.com. All the information there, store locators there, everything you know to get on board with the awesome LS Cream. And with that, it's time for GameFace 329. We're going to talk first about someone else's coverage. Game Informer does a great job every month with his cover stories. And this month's cover story, I would argue, is probably the biggest one in the last year, at least for most of our fans and our audience. And they are doing a huge blowout on Resident Evil 4, the remake of Resident Evil 4. up until now, we had one trailer that had like 80 seconds of footage in it or something like that. Just basically a tease. Game Informer this week published a whopping at least 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes of gameplay footage. And what I want to say is we are going to run the footage here, but I want to say first before we do, thank you to Game Informer for supplying the footage, one. Two, make sure you go and support their coverage of Resident Evil 4. They are doing a great job blowing it out all month long. So we're going to talk about the things that are in the video here, but they are doing way more than that over at Game Informer. So make sure you go and support the journalists who are doing the hard work to bring you guys great coverage. Just want to make sure that we're getting a nice plug in for Game Informer because they're doing a great job covering the remake of Resident Evil 4. And so, Matt, we finally get a look at not just cut together trailers, we get a look at real gameplay footage from the Resident Evil 4 remake. It starts here where Leon and Ashley are trying to escape the church and get to a helicopter to evacuate. As you know, if you've played Resident Evil 4, they do not make it to the helicopter. Instead, they get chased through a village and they end up in a cabin where there's this huge iconic scene where it's basically a horde mode inside the cabin with you, Ashley, and Lewis. First of all, Matt, what do you think about how Ashley looks?
Looks fine.
Do you like the old Ashley better or the new Ashley?
I don't like Ashley very much.
I don't either. She's care. Annoying AF.
All I hope that she still looks ridiculous when she pops back out of the dumpster. That's one of my favorite dumb things in the original is when you call her back out of the dumpster, she like stands straight up out of the dumpster and it like looks like a Warner Brothers cartoon almost. Yeah. Like no one can do that. Like. So I hope that's somewhere in there intact in some way. But no, I think she looks fine. Like I think they all look a little weird.
They do. I like the old Ashley personally. I think, I'll just go on the record saying that. But
I think that whatever. There's something. They all have that Capcom engine quality to them. And
yeah,
it's just something,
the RE engine.
It's just something I accept now.
Where they look a little plasticky.
A little too pale. Mm-hmm. Also, Leon looks really young to me now.
How about the HUD conversations? That's new. That's something we've never seen in RE4.
That's fine. That's better than making me look at a static menu screen.
I wish you could move a little faster while those are playing.
Yeah, well, we got to load things.
Because they slow you down to a crawl while those things are happening. But that is a new addition. All this footage comes from Chapter 5. About 3 hours into the game, if I remember correcely.
I don't know
roughly.
Anymore.
It's hard to really remember. It's been a long time since I've played RE4.
I can't even remember what chapter is what anymore.
There was a shot of the map. So you're getting to see a lot of stuff.
Map looks there.
Yeah. So you're getting to see a lot of stuff for the first time in the RE4 remake that hasn't been shown before. I wonder if they will remove the ballistics line from RE4, where Ashley and Leon come into the cabin and Lewis goes, "Oh, I see the president installed ballistics on his daughter," making reference to her chest.
Yeah,
you think they'll keep that in?
I think they'll probably get rid of that.
You think so?
I think so. Well, how old is she supposed to be?
I don't know.
I can't remember. If she's not 18, they will get rid of that.
I think she's supposed to be over 18.
Is she?
Supposed to be, but I
don't know. Have you seen anime?
Well, remember at the end, and that's thus the lower third, when you're on the jet ski, she says, "Let's go back to your place and do some overtime."
And he's like, "Nope."
I guess you're 12. I like the look of the old Ashley. You're right, though. She does look more like an adult now.
He's no Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
Did you know that Leo DiCaprio and his new girlfriend, they're the same ages as Joel and Ellie, Pedro and Pascal and
really?
Bella? Like they're the
same age gap.
Yeah, that's the same. No, that's the same ages.
Oh.
They're both 19. The girls are both 19.
Ellie's 19?
The actress is.
Right.
Ellie is 14.
But in the show, she's 13,
14,
right?
14? She's 14.
Okay.
But the actress is 19.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's messed up, dude. There's no denying that. Like Billy Bo Baggins says they removed the ballistics line.
Okay, that's fine. Leo DiCaprio's girlfriend is so young, her high school experience was disrupted by COVID.
That's insane, dude. Mm-hmm. So here's what everyone's complaining about in this footage. I'm going to rewind this very quickly so you can see it here. Once they get out of the church here, the rain. A lot of people are comparing the rain to the GTA trilogy rain. This isn't even the worst shot of it. It gets worse in certain points where literally the rain is...
It looks way better than the GTA trilogy rain. Let's just start there. It does seem to just be an overlay. But at least it's not glitching through the horizon half the time.
It's not raining through like the overhangs and things like that. Like, it's not busted. It's just an artistic choice that people are having issues with.
It also seems to be a reference to like old school horror movie rain, which was in fact just in the front of the camera, and they would add milk to it to make it thicker so you could see it on camera.
So I've paused it there, and I do wonder if the rain is intentional to kind of obscure your vision, because it works. It definitely obscures like what you're trying to shoot at. You can't see it all that clearly.
I mean, I think it is intended as an obstacle of sorts. Yeah. I mean, obviously they don't need it because there's indoor sections and stuff, but like, and there's sections where it's not raining. But I mean, I think it looks fine, and also like there's been a bunch of people that's like, don't worry about the rain, like,
because they can easily change it and adjust it.
It's an easy adjust, and like it's really only noticeable when he turns fast, when you realize that he's not turning through the drops are turning with him.
Right.
Like that's the issue.
Yeah, it's a little awkward.
Is that it's when he turns, it's obviously an overlay. It's not an environmental effect.
Cinetite's asking if you can see rain bouncing off the characters. You can.
Yeah. It does. But that's a separate visual effect from
the actual rain.
It's not the actual drops you're seeing bounce. It's just
it's not real time. Yeah, it's all fake.
And no game does that. Nothing's that powerful. But it is. Like, basically, it's not. Look, almost all rain in a video game is some kind of overlay that isn't a real simulation.
Right.
But most of them don't make it turn with the character. That's the problem here, and that should be a not horrible fix. Like that you can make that happen. Why doesn't it happen in this footage? I don't know.
How do you feel about the merchant, Matt? We got our first look at the merchant. He completely changed his voice. He doesn't talk like that anymore. He doesn't say, "What are you buying? What are you selling?"
Yeah, I think, I'm well aware that things have to change for modern presentation. Like, that's just not how... It's like how Isaac talks now. It's like, I wouldn't want to go through a modern game with a silent protagonist like that, and I think...
mean, Metroid Prime 4, I'd be okay if Samus doesn't say anything.
Only in the sense that I don't want a repeat of Other M. Like, I'm okay with Samus talking and having more of a personality. Not that one.
Yeah. I miss the voice. To me, that's the character. What are you buying? What are you selling?
I mean, I think there's room in this reimagining for that. Because if they didn't, then everybody'd be like, "Oh, they didn't change enough. It's just a remaster." Like, it's like you can't win. Like that. It's like, make him different.
I really thought that the merchant was something about RE4 that unanimously people liked.
Oh yeah, but they might like this too. Like, this is a different angle on it.
I mean, he just seems very drab. Again, this is only one little scene that you have with him, but he just seems really generic and dull.
Maybe. I mean, sometimes that's what happens, but I don't know. Like, we'll see how
he does open the code at least.
This is clearly not his first appearance in the game.
So of course not.
We'll see what they do with him.
So you turn in,
and if they're changing him drastically like that might be for a reason. They might need to do something with him.
Maybe. So that's a big change for people who have played RE4 before. He was a bit of like a cult hero to a lot of people from the game.
But also, he's still there if you want to go back and play the old one. The original Resident Evil 4 is not unplayable today, and it's certainly easy to get on modern platforms. That's one advantage Resident Evil 4 has over like Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Is like, this doesn't feel like rescuing this game in the way that maybe it did for 2 and 3.
Agreed. I agree with that. So at the merchant, you turn in your side quests. That's where you get credit for your side quests, and generally in the form of currency. You can also upgrade all your guns here. There are 3 different levels of the guns. And you can see that there's 4 different, at least for that weapon in particular, there's 4 different categories that you can bump up the 3 different levels. Sometimes that changes per weapon, but generally it doesn't deviate all that much. And you'll see right here, as soon as you leave the merchant, the way you get the side quests there are blue pieces of paper that are kind of nailed to the walls, and you pick them up. You actually saw Leon turn one in, and now there's a new one. So as soon as he turned in his side quest, there's another brand new one right on the wall, right next to the merchant there. And you just pick up the piece of paper. It's like a wanted sign or whatever. Game Informer mentioned that one of the side missions that it got to play through was and it's actually this one right here. There's like a rabid dog running around in one of the villages, and you need to go hunt down the dog and kill it. They also said it was very involved in like multi-part, and that the side missions that they've played through so far have not been frivolous. So They also mentioned that there are new branching paths through the game. One thing I would say that struck me about this, Matt, is that this game in general is not changed as much as I thought it was going to be. I really thought that they had like completely scrapped like the level design from the original game and just rebuild everything. That is not the case. Like, it is basically the same exact level design, except they've added a couple branching paths here and there that you can go down to get like bonuses and things like that. But I think if you were afraid that perhaps this RE4 remake was going to stray too far from the original, and you're a big fan of it like Matt and I are, maybe you shouldn't be fearing that as much anymore. It really does seem like it's really true to the original with some tweaks here and there. Instead of just being this completely brand new game with a couple nods to the older games.
I never really thought they were going to do that because that would have been incredibly stupid. There's an 8 and broke, don't fix it quality to Resident Evil 4 if you're going to remake that. So
it is incredibly linear. You are essentially running down a cattle chute the entire time. A couple branching paths here and there.
Sometimes you can pick your cattle chute. That's all.
What'd you say?
Sometimes you can pick your cattle chute.
Yeah, you can pick a different chute to go down if you want to find some special stuff. A lot of stuff has returned, though, like shooting the blue medallions. They're hidden all over the environments. You shoot those. They did say that there's a change in that there used to be X number of medallions per chapter. Now it's sporadic. There may be a handful in one. There may be 15 in another one, et cetera, et cetera. So that mixes it up a little bit. I'm guessing they changed the placement on some of that stuff. At least I hope so. As I said, you can upgrade your weapons. You can buy and sell items at the merchant. Each weapon has 3 levels for power, ammo capacity, reload speed, and rate of fire. You can also upgrade the knives now, Matt. And the knives in the game have limited durability, though. Yeah.
So there's how your speed runs will happen.
But you can level up your knives because there's also a brand new like parry mechanic in the game that you use with the knife. So the knife is more important in this. They also said that you could actually use it as a functional weapon. However, they do break over time. So
that's probably like ties in with the fact that they got rid of the QTEs.
Probably.
So.
Yep.
Because a lot of the QTEs involve the knife.
Yeah.
Like the fight with what's his name? Who is that guy? The big guy. You have like the knife fight. Was that Wesker? That's not Wesker.
Wesker, yeah.
Is that Wesker?
Yeah. You mean the QTE knife fight?
Yeah.
No, it's
That's a Krauser.
Krauser, yeah. The dude with the beret.
Yeah.
Yes, Krauser. An iconic moment. But I think they'll probably leave that in there, don't you?
Yeah, it sounds like, as you described the knife combat, it sounds like that fight will just happen to play out.
It could just be a real-time fight instead of a QTE.
Gameplay, yeah,
that would be cool. And now you're starting to see a lot of the combat. If you watch this combat, most of it is use the gun to disable the enemy, run up, either roundhouse kick or stab him.
Yes, that's accurate.
That's RE4. That's the way it was. And
I mean, there should be more suplexing, but...
So you saw right there, he shot a medallion very quickly there. There was one up in that barn. But it does look like the general combat flow is disable the enemy, shoot him in the knee, whatever you got to do to get him down on the ground, or to just keep them or make them immobile. Come up, roundhouse kick them, stab them in the head. If they're down on the ground, you can stab them in the chest, etc. Now you're starting to see the setup. There's Lewis, who's made his triumphant return. You're seeing the setup for the big Horde mode cabin battle, which is one of the most iconic moments from Resident Evil 4. Lots of ideas. Was this before or after Call of Duty Zombies?
This is before.
So
this is 2005.
So Call of Duty Zombies.
Call of Duty Modern Warfare hasn't even happened yet.
Right. So as it turns out, Call of Duty Zombies ended up borrowing a ton from this scene because you're pushing stuff in front of the windows. You're using boards to board up the windows.
I mean, you could also just argue that that's zombie movies.
Yeah.
But,
Evil Dead, obviously.
It would not surprise. I mean, this game was so influential. It would not surprise me if Treyarch was sitting around thinking what they could do to differentiate themselves from Infinity Ward's game.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we really like that scene in Resident Evil where you fight the zombies off in the cabin.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah.
Could have been that simple.
But even like the wood is like an item that you pick up and then you choose which window to use it on and blah, blah, blah.
Also, like this kind of thing, I've had some old online friends, and a couple of them were hardcore zombie movie fans. Mm-hmm. And this kind of thing was what they always wanted.
In a game,
This is the game they wanted to be able to board up the windows and fight the zombies off and build like a little like base of operation. Like that was what they always fantasized about being able to do. Like we'd play like Left 4 Dead, and they'd be like, "This would be so good if you could do it like that." Basically, State of Decay, is what they're thinking of. Except functional.
This part was hard in the original, and it looks hard as nails in this.
Well, the thing that keeps striking me about all the footage that has come out, even the other trailer, it's so dark.
It is, yeah. The lighting in his flashlight plays a much bigger role in this.
And I'm sure it'll be different when you're playing it on a 4K screen, because obviously the blacks are going to get crushed a little bit through, like, recording the footage and then putting it through a codec and then downloading the footage and putting it through the track. Like you're not seeing the truest image here.
Oh,
but it is very. I mean, I can't remember a lot of moments in the original where I needed a flashlight.
Yeah.
Or if there were, they don't stand out.
You didn't need it.
I just didn't. That doesn't come to mind as part of Resident Evil 4 to me.
Me either. Yep. This part does though. Yeah. So the part where you go collect items and then you combine them. So you have a mask and then you find 3 jewels, you put the jewels in the mask, it dramatically increases the value when you turn in the mask with the jewels versus just turning the mask and the jewels separately. So that's another mechanic.
The merchant always likes it when Leon does some crafting.
Yeah. And so that's also returned for this remake.
Look, I made a crown.
Yeah. A couple other things that were revealed in this footage. Obviously, you've seen already how the enemies mutate. As you shoot them a couple times, tentacles will spray out of their heads and they become much more dangerous. That obviously is returned. In a minute, you'll see a dog that does that. You shoot the dog once and all of a sudden this almost scorpion tail spurts up out of the dog's back. And it turns into like this crazy mutated dog. As I mentioned, the blue medallions have returned. You have to find in various parts of the levels and shoot them. What else? I think that's pretty much it. That's pretty much everything they exposed. Here you're seeing the cooperative stuff with Leon and Ashley, where you boost her up and then she drops the ladder down for you. That stuff's all returned. Again, going back to what I said earlier, this game, this remake, so to speak, is much more true to the original than I expected it to be. That shot right there reminded me a little bit of Blair Witch. Because he walks in there and he shines a flashlight over and there's Ashley standing in the corner, like right there. Like, isn't that like Blair Witch?
Yeah, it's also just, I guess, for the AI is only
right. The stray AI just walked over there.
Here.
Yep. So how do you feel now after learning more and seeing more about the Resident Evil 4 remake? Are you more excited for it? Less excited for it?
About the same. I mean, it's what I thought I would be.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, because the trailer, and I'll play the trailer now so you can see it, because this is all we had before. When I first watched the trailer, I really thought that more of it was going to be changed than it has been. Because they showed the first scene and it was in the dark versus being in the daytime. And I was like, wow, they're going after a couple sacred cows here. But it doesn't appear that the entire game is kind of designed that way. It does seem like they have realized, man, there's people who love this game and changing it too much probably would not be the best idea. And I think I could agree with that. I think what I'm seeing now through this footage from Game Informer is probably for the best. I think it's the smartest way to approach a remake like this. I don't think you can make it too different than the original.
I never thought none of this really ever looked that different. I mean, yeah, it takes place at night, but like it just felt like they were going for a darker tone that kind of matches the darker tone of the other remakes.
Yeah.
Which, there's also an element of like if they could have done the original the way they've done these remakes, they probably would have. The tech wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting tech didn't exist to do Resident Evil 4 like this
at
the time.
Yeah.
It was just very brown.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that color palette really plays today for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, so I understand what they're doing. No, but the other thing is like once he gets out to where these things are, it is nighttime, but I recognize all the locations for the most part. It all looks the same there. And then the sun comes up. So I think it's dawn at the beginning of the game. I think the sun will slowly come up as you get to the village, and then when you have your big showdown with the 4,000 villagers, I think the sun will have come up.
You think that'll be in the daylight?
I think that will be sort of as realization dawns on Leon that he's in a very bad position, the sun will dawn on this Spanish village full of tentacle monsters.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be kind of the lighting trick they pull for that.
That's cool. I guess I would say in general, I feel basically about the same as I did. I'm more excited for some things, less excited for others, but ultimately, I'm still jacked up beyond all belief to play this game.
Yeah, I think, I'm not super excited about it, but I think it's one of those things where once I start to play it, I'll settle into it in a way. And I've kind of thought about playing the original again. Like, not all of it. It's just a long game. But like, I was thinking about loading the original up just to kind of remind myself of how it is for the
I'm
first
not going
couple
to.
hours, just so I can have a direct contrast. Because it has been like 10 years since I played it, really. So I might just... But like, I don't know. Like, I remember bits and you know, memes of it. You know, the stuff that people always talk about, all the Salazar stuff and all, you know, all that. I kind of hope Leon's still a sarcastic jerk to him. Like, yeah, Leon's pretty funny in the original game.
There's a bunch of funny lines.
Like, I don't think it's not like the original Resident Evil where it's like, you guys have no idea what you're fucking doing.
Yeah,
like
they're intentionally funny jokes.
Yeah, he gets the best of a couple of the enemies every once in a while, and I think it was pretty funny. And, so I'm wondering if they keep that aspect.
I hope so. I mean, again, they may have to rewrite a couple of the jokes that are in there.
Who's voicing him? Have they mentioned
who?
Leon.
I don't know. I wouldn't know if they're the right voice actor anyway. I don't go that deep into the RE lore.
I'm sure it's not the same guy, but I'm just curious.
He does sound different.
Yeah, he is a different guy, I'm sure. I just wondering who it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Ashley, because I think
she definitely is different.
Definitely different. Yeah.
Yeah, but we'll see. I do hope that some of that humor is in there, because it was nice to have those moments, at least if you chuckled at them a little bit, to create some peaks and valleys in the game. And so hopefully they're still there. We'll see.
And then I'm very curious where they go next after this.
I think they're done with the remakes.
No, I don't think you are. I think you got
Code Veronica.
You can remake Code Veronica. I think you also have to remake the first game.
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I am friends with Shinji Mikami on Facebook, and this week he hinted that Code Veronica is next.
It would make sense to do that, but I think they also need to get to 1 eventually.
Yeah,
Resident Evil 1 needs a real remake.
Because usually most of his posts on Facebook are just him like eating dinner or whatever, and they'll get like 5 likes and like 1 comment. Looks good. What restaurant's that? And then he posted the thing about Code Veronica, and it was just like bleh, of people just like, oh my god, I can't wait. Like,
beyond that, I think you can just let it.
Yeah. After that,
I don't think you need
You don't need to remake 5 or 6.
I mean, you do, but
you need to make a new game.
Yeah, you need to just start over.
Trash it.
Like just start over.
Yeah, that's where it started flying off the rails a little bit. So
like remake 5 and 6, and then just say 7 and 8 can stand. But 5 and 6 are yeah. I mean, honestly, 5 I would be fine with if they just remade it without the partner thing.
Well, we're going to actually talk about Resident Evil 5 tangentially here in the next topic that we're going to discuss, because there's some stuff in that probably would need to be changed as well.
Yes, there's some things that would need to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's all we have on the Resident Evil 4 remake for you here on GameFace. But again, make sure you head over to GameInformer.com or head to their YouTube channel on YouTube. They are blowing this game out all month long. But this was just like their first big chunk of gameplay that they share with everybody. And we don't want to blow all their coverage, so we wanted to talk about this. And they will continue on showing new footage and tons of interviews and things like that. So again, please make sure you head on over and support it. And if you're a Sifted user, we'll be curating all that stuff on the site so you won't miss it. So anyway, there you go. That's the latest on the Resident Evil 4 remake. Next up, what everybody is talking about right now, and I'm guessing what you guys probably thought we were going to discuss first on today's show, and that is Hogwarts Legacy. But we haven't played it, so we're not going to talk about the game itself and whether it's good or whether it's bad or not. We wanted to discuss the cultural angle around Hogwarts Legacy, because reviews came out yesterday, and a lot of the reviews, I'll just be honest, I'm pretty surprised at how high its aggregate score is.
Especially when you read the review.
Yeah, I drafted it in my fantasy team hoping to get like a 7.5. It was at like a 9 for parts of yesterday. Now it's come down to like, I think, an 87 the last time I looked at it. Its aggregate score is really high. And so from a fantasy perspective, I'm like, damn, I got lucky on that one. But here's the thing. The discussion is about whether people should cover the game or not. I've seen people that I know and that I respect on Twitter. One person I know and respect says we're covering it. The other person I know and respect says they're not going to cover it. And the reasons that they give for each one, I can kind of understand. So what we really want this discussion to be about is, what is the role of the critic? And not just for games, but for anything. Is it to just evaluate a product, or is it to take into consideration the cultural significance and angles that are now imparted into pop culture products, and they weren't before? Like back in the 70s and 80s, sure, you knew Ozzy Osbourne had bit the head off a bat or whatever. You knew that Kiss, like, didn't want to take off their makeup. Like, you knew stuff, but you didn't know as much as you do now. And you didn't have social media where the people who were behind these pop culture things could go out and you could learn who they really were. And they were inaccessible back then. Celebrities, for most of Matt and I's lives, were inaccessible. There is no way you could reach out and talk to a J.K. Rowling's. It just wasn't possible. And you didn't know what they believed other than what they worked on. Maybe they did one interview.
Well, sometimes you did an interview or get an expose or like...
But very rare. Like, you just didn't know like what the people who made the art were really like and what they really thought and what they really felt. That is all different now. There are some artists who still kind of pull away and don't put themselves out there, but I'd argue 85% do. They're on social media, they're interacting with fans, and it's, for the most part, I think it's been a good thing. But then there are examples where it kind of sours people on things that they love, like Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling and her stance on trans people. So what do you think, Matt? What do you think the role of the critic? Do you think critics should take into consideration things like this, and that people who have decided not to cover the game are based upon what J.K. Rowling has said and done are right to do that? How do you feel about it?
It depends how you take your role as critic. Like, you know, and there are critics that are just Consumer Reports. Like, I'm here to tell you that this car works and that these tires roll and that this vacuum sucks or doesn't suck.
Or you hope it sucks.
Because it sucks well.
Right.
And that is a way that games have been reviewed in the past. That's a thing. You can do that if you want.
Actually, I'm sorry. I should have framed this discussion better because people are asking in the chat, what did she say? What has she done? So we probably need to frame that first before we start discussing whether what's happening is good or bad. And you know better than I do.
Yeah.
So.
J.K. Rowling has, over the last several years, starting around 2016-ish, but really leaning into it in the last 3 or 4 years, has outed herself as what some would call a TERF. I would call a TERF, which stands for Trans Exclusionary Radical Feminist, which is someone who supposedly supports women's rights but does not consider trans women to be women. J.K. Rowling would call herself part of the gender critical movement, which is the TERF word for turf.
Okay. There's a kinder, gentler way for them to identify themselves.
It's just like a way to make it not, like, you know, there's the whole argument, turf is a slur. It's just like, well, no, it's an accurate description of what you're saying. But she has leaned very hard into and has been into the idea of, you know, trans women are not women and they shouldn't be allowed in women's bathrooms because they're a threat, which is not a thing. You know, but basically, one of their tenets is like, oh, that just means men can dress as women and go into women's bathrooms and rape women. And it's like, that is not a thing that has ever happened.
Why would they?
I do. Well, yeah. That
makes no sense.
Obviously, assaults have happened in women's bathrooms, but no man has ever felt the need to go in camo, right? Like, they're just going to do it.
No sense.
Well, I will say, to their credit, the gender critical folks at least do realize that men are the problem, one way or the other. Okay, a shitty opinion, like, whatever. She didn't. You know, it would have been nice if she'd had the decency, as so many other British children's authors have had, to be shitty people quietly and in the dark until after they died, and we realized after the fact.
This goes back to what I was saying. I mean, it used to be that way.
Roald Dahl was not someone you'd want to have over for dinner,
right?
You know, like, he hated children. Apparently, he was a very unpleasant man. But no one really knew that when we were
times
reading.
Have changed,
you know, and now she's out on Twitter. The problem really comes down to, and obviously, you know, there's people that believe shitty things that we buy things from and play games from and all that. You know, the fact that, you know, every time you buy a game system, you are supporting, like, what may be child slavery and mining rare earth elements out of some, like,
or you
hole
buy a
in
pair
Africa
of Nikes,
or whatever. Yeah,
or...
like, that does not preclude the fact that this is something you can discuss and have a problem with, like, because you know about it. Once you know about it, you can't know everything bad that you're supporting. There is no ethical consumption under capitalism is a thing, but it's also not a freedom from morality choices. It's not the excuse to do anything you want because everything sucks. That's not what that is for. It's to mitigate the idea that, like, you know, there's any way to be perfect, because there isn't.
Yeah.
The problem with J.K. Rowling is not just that she has terrible opinions, but she very, very actively, monetarily supports activism groups, including the LGB Alliance, which actively goes after trans people, actively pushes for legislation to hurt trans people, actively pushes hate against trans people, has been responsible for real physical and emotional damage to trans people, mainly in the UK. But it happens everywhere. There have been over 100 anti-LGBT bills introduced in 36 different states just in 2022, insane. And more than 30 this year alone so far in other states. Yep. Like, it is an ongoing thing. Trump got on, on social media or whatever is Truth,
whatever that is,
and basically said, if I become president, I'm going to outlaw trans people and force people to detransition. Look, that was
okay.
That is often couched as like protect the children from being forced to transition or what, which is again not a thing that happens, but it's conservatives love to invent things that never exist and then be afraid of them. Before it was kind of limited to we want the children to not have to deal with this until they're older, but Trump turned it into adult. So it's an ongoing kind of campaign of terror almost if you're a trans person, and that's sort of how it feels to be trans right now. And the problem is that Rowling does financially benefit from all the Harry Potter stuff, and she uses that money to directly fund horrible shit that fits her beliefs. It's not just her beliefs, it's that she actively can do something about it culturally and societally, and she has said very publicly on Twitter and other places that if you buy and enjoy Harry Potter stuff, she takes that as an implicit endorsement of her views.
Now, did she actually say that she specifically was going to take the money that she makes from Hogwarts Legacy and give it to anti-trans organizations?
I'm sure.
I thought people reported that she had said that specifically.
She might. If she did say that, I didn't see it. It wouldn't surprise me. But the other thing is, she makes so much money that she probably doesn't know where each pound is coming. She's just donating large amounts to these conservative causes and these anti-trans causes. Mm-hmm. For me personally, the line in the sand for me was her saying, if you like Harry Potter and support and purchase Harry Potter stuff, you are implicitly supporting my opinion on this. Mm-hmm. If she hadn't said that, I would have a lot easier time saying, it sucks, but whatever, $1.50 out of my purchase of a Harry Potter butterbeer at Universal that goes to her is not going to, change any, it's not going to be the end all be all. But then she basically says, if she's going to come out and say, if you're still buying Harry Potter stuff, you are supporting me in that regard, not just supporting her financially, but saying you support me on an ethical level, that's a problem. That's the line in the sand for me.
I agree with that. How do you feel about people who may not know that she ever said that? Look,
not everybody is terminally online enough to know that happened.
It's kind of like the question that you sometimes will ask Christians. It's how do you rationalize the tribe that lives out in the middle of nowhere, has never heard anything about God or Jesus, and they die? Do they go to heaven?
Right.
It's kind of the same question.
Right. Well, that's the part of the issue is for me, I think the end of it should be, look, if you've never heard of any of this with her, because it's obviously not a thing that pops up in the Harry Potter extras on the Blu-ray or anything. If you've never heard about it, basically the solution to that is she said this, and this, and it's that sucks. At the very least, I think you should be making informed decisions about whether you're purchasing Harry Potter stuff. And sometimes you don't have a choice. If you're a parent and you have kids that love Harry Potter for some reason, because that was kind of a while ago at this point. If the kids are loving Harry Potter because of Fantastic Beasts, you might want to show the kids better movies. That's all I'm saying. You can't really explain that to a kid, that you can't have your Hermione wand because the woman who invented it 25 years ago is a jerk.
Right.
That's not a really conversation you would have with a 5-year-old, right?
Yeah.
It's more if you're going to choose to buy this game and play it and ignore the ramifications around it, that's fine. I think that's fine. Everyone gets to make their own choice on that. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to publicly go around and proclaim you did that and either look for absolution or to trigger the snowflakes, you're kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm going to think what I think about someone who goes and buys that game with full knowledge of what they're supporting. Mm-hmm. I am going to think a different thing about someone who buys that game not knowing any of this is a thing.
And just wanted to play a Harry Potter game.
If someone just wants to play a Harry Potter game And look, probably I have my own issues with some of the reviews I've read because I don't think a lot of these reviews texts match their scores, which is weird to me. But then again, who knows? IGN, I know it's not the same reviewer like that did both of these games, but IGN is trying to tell, IGN's editorial board is the same, and IGN's editorial board is trying to tell me that Hogwarts Legacy is a better video game than Spider-Man PS4, and that is a fucking lie.
That seems hard to
I don't
believe.
need to play Hogwarts Legacy to tell you that I do not believe that. Especially having read the review, which spends most of its time telling you how bad the game is.
Yeah.
Like, I know the combat never gets boring or repetitive. Let me spend a paragraph telling you how boring and repetitive the combat gets.
Well, that editor in particular mentioned that they were a huge Harry Potter fan.
Oh, yeah.
And so I liken a little bit to From Software fans reviewing all From Software's games. Like,
A little bit. But also, sorry, I get why someone loves From Software games to that degree more than I get. I mean, the Harry Potter thing, I know some of it is like you grew up with it.
Yeah.
When those books came out, I was in my mid-20s, and I read them, and they were fine.
Yeah.
The early ones are very charming, nonsense, British children's lit, and as long as you don't think about the world too hard for a couple of minutes, they're fine. The first 2 or 3 or 4
Suspend
are fine,
disbelief.
And then as you get into the 5th, 6th, and 7th, they start trying to take themselves more seriously and grow up with the kids who grew up with. She's trying to write to the older audience as those kids
'cause they've
grow
gotten
up
older.
alongside.
Yeah.
And as you start to be expected by the books to take the wizarding world seriously, it just doesn't work.
It starts to
anymore.
fall apart.
It all falls apart because none of it makes any sense. To the point that some of the stuff in this game they couldn't really simulate properly, although they have a little bit of a wiggle room because it takes place like 100 years ago. So it's like, oh well, that just wasn't a thing yet,
Right.
in this world.
You mean why they've omitted it?
In this world that has incredible amounts of traditionalism that apparently doesn't get over. They refuse to use plumbing for however long.
Right, yeah.
Whatever. The weirdest thing about the game that I read in the reviews is that there is no punishment for the using an unforgivable curse.
Oh. That's a big deal.
Yeah, like there's no morality system. So if you use like Avada Kedavra or whatever, either that thing or something, or Crucius or whatever, everyone kind of looks at you funny, but nothing happens.
There's no repercussions.
No, that's supposed to be Dementor quality punishment for that one, but apparently not. Things were different around.
It was 100 years earlier.
100 years ago. It was end of the 1800s. Whatever it was. I don't know. So yeah.
Okay, so you've explained what's happened now.
Yeah, that's what happened there. So that's when you see people freaking out about whether they should buy this or not. That's why. I do think you've hit a point. Yeah, like I said, I think the decision should be: am I going to do this or not? Am I going to buy this or not? And if you do, you're saying something about whether you care about this issue or not. And there are people who do care about this issue who are going to judge you for it. And I think that's pretty much where it should stop. I do not agree with the people who are harassing Twitch streamers who are playing the game to the point that they need to stop the stream. That's happening. Like they're getting brigaded by anti-rolling stuff to the point that they've stopped streaming the game. Like I get the fervor that people have about this, and that there are trans people who feel their lives are on the line, and they may well be in terms of stuff. I don't think Hogwarts Legacy is going to be the watershed moment in legislation against LGBT people.
It's just another step,
but
though.
it is. But the one thing you have to understand about the people who are kind of cavalierly buying it anyway, not the people who are buying it out of ignorance, but the people who are buying it anyway, you have to understand that. To people who are in this, to the trans people who see this every day and deal with this kind of prejudice and bigotry every day, they're seeing giant neon signs from you that say, I don't care what happens to you.
Yeah.
I want to play my video game. And I definitely understand why the product of that could be anger.
Yeah, I could understand it too. Now, the counterpoint that most of the people who are saying, you know what, I am buying it, I am playing it, I am going to cover it, is that there are 500 people who worked on this game, and to deprive those 500 people of their just rewards, their royalties.
Well, nobody's getting royalties off this thing except her. Maybe like high-end production leaders are getting bonuses at a certain point.
The people who work at the studio, if the game tanks, there's going to be layoffs. They're going to cut down their staff. People are going to lose their jobs. So where do you fall?
That's not our job to worry about. It's not. It has nothing to do.
So you're worrying about one person's money, but you're not worrying about another person's money. You're worrying about J.K. Rowling's money, but you're not worrying about the lead designer's money.
J.K. Rowling's using her money to hurt people. the other people are using their money to have already gotten paid. They got paid.
But they may lose their job.
That's not my problem. That's my problem is that's not anyone's problem to keep a game developer in business. They need to make business decisions that keep themselves in business. And one of those decisions might be not making a Harry Potter game. But also, by that rationale, we need to buy every video game. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, every good video game that you want to buy. It's not just buy any game.
So they should lose their jobs if the game isn't good.
I mean, that's kind of how capitalism works.
Right. But, like, good is subjective, so you can't make that value choice. Like, that's not a thing.
I mean, come on.
Come on, what? Value is that's subjective.
I mean, so what isn't subjective? The aggregate score? It's at an 87.
That's not that is absolutely subjective. That's
but
a bunch of subjective opinions.
It doesn't matter for this game, but it matters for all the other ones? Like,
what?
Like, the score ultimately contributing to whether people stay employed or not. Like
I don't think Metacritic score should have anything to do with people staying employed. I agree with that,
but that's not reality. In fact,
the Metacritic score on this is fine, so it's not an issue.
But you're still skirting around the question. Why are you so concerned about J.K. Rowling's money and you're not concerned about someone else's money?
Because that's not the same thing. That money is not the same thing. But
they could be unemployed and their lives could suck just like a trans person's life could suck if J.K. Rowling was making money.
Unemployment is not the same as being hunted down and killed by right-wingers.
I agree with that. I don't think that that's going to happen.
Give it time.
I mean,
and it has happened.
I mean, of course, everyone's been hunted. Every type of person's been hunted down and killed. Like that's just...
It's not a valid comparison. It doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make it. Her money is the money you're worried about is validating her use of money and validating her opinion. Like every sale in this game. Okay,
let's imagine for a minute though that one of the employees working on the game, you don't know what they're doing with their money. But what if one of them is like pro-trans, and the money that they're going to make on the bonuses from the game, they actually put into a charity to counteract what J.K. Rowling is doing. Like, you don't know what they're going to do with their money. But
I do know what she's going to do with it, and that's the point.
Yeah.
I don't have perfect information about every human on the planet, but I do know what J.K. Rowling is going to do with that money.
I don't know. To me, I don't think it's as cut and dried as you say it is.
Well, it is because we don't have biographies of everyone who worked on this game. Like, you can't know that.
But you're saying that you don't care about the people that worked on the game, basically. It's not your problem. It's not your fault if they lose their jobs. Like, tough luck, basically.
I mean, I say that about every game I don't buy.
Yeah, but this is a good one.
How do I know that?
Okay.
What if it doesn't matter?
Generally, people believe this is a good video game. You may not, but generally it appears that most people believe it's a well-crafted video game. And you're saying you're okay with somebody doing a good job on something and not making money on their work. Or not continuing to be employed based upon that quality work. But that doesn't mean it's okay, Matt.
That's not an ethical decision I care about, no. There's a very good chance I wouldn't buy this game anyway because I don't care about Harry Potter. Like, if someone doesn't like Star Wars... Are they ethically wrong for not buying Jedi Survivor because the people who made that game might go out of business?
Wait, let's rewind here. So are you saying that if J.K. Rowling had not said this stuff, that you would still not be interested in this game? You wouldn't play or buy this game?
Probably not.
Aw, come on, Matt.
I mean, I would for this show, but if we weren't doing this show, I probably wouldn't.
You read all the books. I'm not even a Harry Potter fan.
I am not a Harry Potter fan. I don't like Harry Potter.
I never read the books. I've watched the movies.
I still have not seen I have not seen the last movie.
My point is, you're a bigger fan than I am. And I would buy this game.
I am not a fan. I'm just aware of it. I still haven't seen the last movie.
Okay, you have more built-in interest in the IP than I do. Is that fair?
20 years ago,
Still, you do, though. And I would buy this game.
I don't think I would for $70. Like, I might get it later. Like, I don't think this is something I would care about like that.
I'm really surprised that you would not play this game.
I don't think it looks very good. Like, really? I'm sure I know the reviews are what they are, but every piece of footage about this, other than the actual graphical quality, I don't think the combat looks like ass to me. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't look Dragon Age 4 Elite bad, but like it doesn't look interesting to me. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I realize this is the game that a lot of Harry Potter fans have waited for forever, but it's too little too late to me. Like, if this had come out in like 2004, 2005, I probably would have. And there's been good games. Like, the GBA games of the first 3 movies are really good action RPGs.
Yeah.
But, like, it's not a thing I particularly care about. Like, and also the world, like, more and more as the time has gone on, the thing that really leave Rowling out of it, the thing that really soured me on Harry Potter, beyond the fact that I thought the end of the books and the movies were lackluster, was those Fantastic Beasts movies are garbage.
They're bad. Yeah, I couldn't even get through any of them. I watched like 20 minutes and I have to turn it off.
Maybe that's unfair to the rest of the franchise, but like those movies, like I didn't see the last one. I saw the first two. Like those movies really put a sour note on it. It's Spider-Man 3 stuff. It's like how Spider-Man 3 makes the other two feel a little worse because you know Spider-Man 3 is coming. It's like that. So yeah, I would probably, if I was not covering games on like a show like this, I would probably be waiting for at least $40 on this one.
Wow, I'm really surprised to hear that. I really thought you would just want to play it.
I would rather just keep playing Spider-Man, if I'm honest, right now. But like, we gotta play the new shit.
Matt, why do you think this has happened now? Because so I started going back and I started looking through not just for gaming controversies, but gaming controversies that were at least somewhat relatable to this, like cultural type stuff. Like you can go all the way back to Punch-Out. And obviously, there's cultural stereotyping there with all the characters in Punch-Out. Way back with some of the original Pokemon games, there was the Pokemon Jinx that was accused of having blackface, and Nintendo went back and completely reworked that Pokemon so it didn't look that way. Resident Evil 5, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, has insensitive racist undertones in it.
I do think some of that is just cultural, like, disconnect.
Yeah.
Like I don't think the people in Japan who designed Jinx knew what they were really doing there.
Yeah, I don't think it was
even though blackface caricature is part of, like, if you look at the first Godzilla, you can see blackface caricatures on advertising billboards and signs in Tokyo, just as part of the landscape.
Yeah.
But they don't have the same cultural weight that they do in America. So I don't think that was a malicious thing. It was just like, oh, this is a global,
I agree with that.
This is that thing where it's like, oh, if something becomes a global phenomenon, suddenly you have to worry about. It's like how the Simpsons has to have fingers added in China or Japan because having a missing digit is like a cultural taboo there.
Right.
Like it's just once things get big enough, or like how Evangelion, everyone suddenly realized they stole all the music from James Bond, and you had to deal with that legally. Like, when something becomes a global phenomenon, you run into things like that. I think this is a little different because everyone involved, the Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling knows what she's saying and doing.
Okay, so what about some of these folks? Like Mr. Fish and Fez. And it was interesting to see it. Marcus is blamed for ending his career, but Marcus Beer. But, there's someone who is a pretty horrible person. It didn't seem like people were run over the coals for supporting his games and buying Fez.
Well, he was horrible in what way? I honestly don't remember the Phil Fish thing.
He had just treated his employees like crap,
right?
And yeah,
I mean that if you don't want to buy Fez 2, well, it's not like you have a choice on buying Fez 2 now. But thanks, Marcus. But no, I think that was Marcus may have catalyzed that, but that happened because Phil Fish is
he's a piece of crap.
Yeah,
Marcus called him out though.
And Marcus nailed him, and he.
It's pretty funny how he is now attributed with ending his career and the cancellation of Fez 2. That is all attributed to Marcus Beer now. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I liked Fez at the time, I do think very little of value was lost there.
Yeah. But then there's Notch. Now, granted, he made most of the money off of Minecraft before he was outed to be a piece of crap. But game's still on sale. It's his creation.
But he doesn't benefit from it anymore.
Not anymore, but he did.
He did, but there's nothing we could do about it because we didn't know then. Also, I think maybe he wasn't that bad then. Like, it feels like that was a spiral he ended
after
up
he
on.
got so
after
rich.
he got rich and everybody...
And he realized people still didn't like him? Even after he was rich? Yeah, it's a hard
Well, part of that was because his friends that he built Minecraft with, he didn't really give them their cut of the billions he made. I mean...
That was the first...
Money changes everything, right?
It changes people, for sure.
So yeah, the Notch thing is an interesting situation, except, I mean, that's where the running gag about like Minecraft came from space thing goes. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't. No.
It's Minecraft. It's either Minecraft came from space. When someone asks who made Minecraft, you say that Minecraft either came from space or was made by Hatsune Miku, who was the virtual idol singer that pops up in those Sega games, because basically the idea is erase Notch from Minecraft's history, so you don't have to deal with the fact that it was made by so Minecraft was given to us from space.
Interesting.
I don't know, which is ironically does cause erasure of the I think he had like a team of like 5 other people that helped him build it originally. So those people should get more credit probably.
I agree. What about David Cage? He's been accused of sexual and racist jokes at Quantic Dream. He obviously has continued on. He's now working on the Star Wars license.
I mean, I'm not thrilled about any of that.
But why do you think that he hasn't faced any backlash, but this is all happened. Not really, though. I mean, he's still running his studio, and he got the Star Wars license.
I mean, J.K. Rowling's still one of the richest people in the world. Like the backlash.
Yeah, because she controls everything.
Yeah, but he controls his studio.
He didn't control the Star Wars license, though, and Disney was still like, "We're okay giving him this."
Yeah, I mean, that is a very good question. I mean, I would love to know the answer to that.
It's a little interesting.
Not even just like, oh, he's sexist, but like clearly he was having difficulty with his company. And it still is, because that game is nowhere to be seen. Like, he couldn't even staff up fully. Part of the thing with David Cage, I think, is that his games just don't come out often enough for that controversy to really bubble up very often.
Well, remember this controversy about the domestic violence in Detroit.
Yeah.
He skated by with all this stuff, too.
Yeah. I mean, part of that, I think, is also that he's French, and the news stories on that tend to be reported on over there and not so much over here. And he's not a national figure. He's not an international figure in the way that someone like J.K. Rowling is, or...
but if you... So imagine you're...
I mean, how many people...
You're the developer.
I'd be curious how many people
Hogwarts
in France know about the Phil Fish thing.
No, I hear you. But imagine you're a developer on Hogwarts Legacy, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to lose my job. I'm probably going to get laid off after this game comes out because people are hating on J.K. Rowling. Here's this other guy,
I don't think they are, because I think this game is going to sell millions.
It might.
It's been the top pre-order on Steam and PSN and Xbox for weeks. Now, that may be because there's nothing else to pre-order. Yeah. It's the only thing on the
right now
on the schedule, AAA-wise.
It's got its own little window.
But no, I think this game is going to sell like crazy.
But let's imagine that it doesn't, and you're one of the developers, and you're like, man, there's a chance I could lose my job after this game comes out because people are mad at this person who owns the IP. And then you're looking at, like, David Cage, and you're like, he skirted by. He's still employed. He didn't have to worry about losing his job, and his game didn't even sell very well either. Like, Detroit, not a big hit.
But I would argue that David Cage, while he's been a shitty boss, has also not been donating literally millions of dollars to an anti-trans hate organization.
I mean, we don't know, but you're probably right. Yeah.
Maybe he would if he had that kind of money. I don't think David Cage has that kind of money. Yeah. David Cage does not have J.K. Rowling money.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And David Cage has also not come out and said, if you buy this Star Wars game, you think you're supporting me in my endeavor to make my female employees uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a perfect analog. I'm just throwing out some other people from...
what I mean is... the J.K. Rowling situation is unique.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other... There's no real
that's why
equivalent.
we're talking about it,
Yeah, there's
honestly.
no real equivalent to this. It's not just, as I think you'll notice if you look at people, like, especially trans and LGBT people talking about it on Twitter, especially today, like, a lot of them are talking about, like, how one of the other, like, kind of unique aspects of this situation is the betrayal they feel, in the sense that they also love Harry Potter. It's like they don't want to play this game. I know several trans people who are like, I really would love to be able to ignore the J.K. Rowling thing and just play this game because it looks like a thing I want to play as someone who grew up with Harry Potter, but I just can't do that with a clear conscience. And it's not just that she's a rich, successful person, and it's not just that she's a rich, successful person with bad opinions, and it's not just that she's a rich, successful person with bad opinions that has the money and actively does use that money to enact on them on a societal and political level. It's that she wrote this thing that everybody took as such a positive thing. It got kids to read. It got kids into reading other books. It created a whole cottage industry of young adult things. And there's a whole section of kids literature that is basically just Harry Potter derived. The message of the book is basically be kind as best you can. If you want to take it as kind of the most, the thing you would impart to a child you were reading the Harry Potter books is like, don't be a jerk. To be kind and treat people with an open mind and an open heart, which is kind of ironic considering what she is
irony
now.
There. Yeah.
I mean, that message is still in it. That message is still there. And so a lot of these trans people that love Harry Potter and grew up loving Harry Potter, there's a profound betrayal there that she turned out to be this. So I never had any kind of hero worship happening. And also you had, she was a women's icon. She was very successful. She's a kind of a rags to riches story because she had she didn't really come out of, some kind of nepotistic situation. She was writing this on a napkin on a train at one point, like there's like all the pieces are there for like the perfect kind of, meteoric rise story. And then it's like, that's why a lot of the commentary you'll see is like, I don't even care that you think this, but I wish you'd just have been, just talked about it with your friends and not on Twitter.
Yeah. A lot of it just really
ignorance is bliss.
You're right, though. That's what I was going to get at. It's like a lot of people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, for example, Dennis Dyack, Silicon Knights. Not a great guy to work for. Toxic in the workplace. Brad Wardell, the CEO of Stardock. He was sexually harassing an employee. He ended up settling the court case out of court. People don't even realize if they're playing a Stardock game that the CEO is a piece of crap. Like,
how many people even play a Stardock game?
Right. Well, anymore.
And that's actually coming up because they've got a new Sins of a Solar Empire thing coming up, and I really love Sins of a Solar Empire, which did come out before all that stuff happened.
It starts to get really messy. It's hard to keep track of hard. Like everyone. Like,
am I gonna probably buy Sins of a Solar Empire, the new thing? Probably not. Like, I have some history with that situation that I did that goes into other things. Would I have a problem buying the Star Wars game from Quantic Dream if that ever comes out? If we're doing. Again, if we are still doing this show in 2027 or whenever that comes out, then yeah, I probably will. If not, I don't think I ever need to subject myself to that game. Again, the advantage with the David Cage thing is that I hate the games he makes.
Yeah, that
if
helps.
I loved his games, there would be a bigger problem here.
Yeah.
If Dennis Dyack still made games, I would argue that Dennis Dyack doesn't make games anymore.
He
really
kind of doesn't.
I mean, and that wasn't
trying to get a trying to get a sequel to a.
That wasn't because he was a jerk. It was more because of some poor choices related to the Unreal Engine.
He has a history.
There's a long story. There's hours long YouTube videos about the Silicon Knights thing. Go ahead and watch them. They're amazing.
The co-creator of Counter-Strike, Jess Cliffy, he was arrested in February 2018 on charges of sex with a minor. Mm-hmm. He engaged the services of a 16-year-old prostitute. It's like you can just keep finding this stuff.
Yeah.
And it feels like everyone's kind of skated by until now we get to this moment. And a lot of it, I think, is cultural change for the better.
Well, to be fair, also you're listing a lot of game developers there. And no one really cared. I mean, look, one of the lead designers on the Hogwarts game was also an alt-right,
I remember that.
And he left the project. But no, I haven't heard him brought up. I don't remember his name, but I haven't heard him brought up in the context of this at all. The whole context is at the top of the food pyramid on this thing is someone who's going to use that money for a nefarious purpose
to hurt
and
someone.
We know that.
Yeah,
that's the thing is we know that.
She's told us. Yeah.
And that's the difference here. We know that. We can't know all that. We can't know what is David Cage using money he makes from the Star Wars deal to hurt people? Maybe, but I don't know.
You don't know for sure.
You can't tell for sure.
Ignorance and by the way, people may not realize this. Ignorance is not stupidity. Ignorance is just you lack the knowledge. You haven't learned about it yet. And ignorance is a big part of this, whether you know or you don't know. And how are people going to know if you know or you don't know? So, which brings me back.
It's also, by the way, it's also okay for all these other things to be happening and for this other thing, whatever it may be. And maybe it's not J.K. Rowling. Maybe it is David Cage for you. But, for one thing to be that's too far for me. I'm not going to support that. I can justify to myself, and that's the only person you need to justify it to is yourself.
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't bother you,
people don't feel that way anymore, though.
No,
people care more about what other people think than what they themselves think.
But in the end,
anymore.
if you want to desperately play Hogwarts Legacy and you don't care if in the end what J.K. Rowling does with her money, that's between you and yourself.
Yeah.
That's your decision.
So let's go back to the critics and the idea.
I might think what I think about it, but who the hell am I?
Yeah. Let's go back to critics and how people are saying, it's my job to review this game, and I'm taking the call. And I'll be honest with you, that's how I view my job. And I've said this a million times on GameFace. I said it a million times on Invisible Walls. I review what they give me. They send me code or I buy code. I just review what is on the disc. I feel like that's my job, to tell you whether the actual game is good or not, and to not take into consideration anything else, because there have been other artists throughout time who have been horrible people but have created amazing art, and people still respect the art. I mean, you can even look at someone like Michael Jackson. Already, I don't know if you've noticed, Matt, but things are softening on Michael Jackson now. Yeah. For years after he died, you would not hear his music during NFL games, during anything. Now it's all starting to leak back in. So there's lots of terrible people who.
But also, Michael Jackson is dead.
He is,
and does not benefit from the playing or purchase of his music.
His family does, so...
Yeah, but his family, I mean, well, let's not get into the
let's
Jacksons.
just stay away from that.
But like Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, horrible racist dipshit, even for his time. Like, there are letters from his friends that are like, dude, you should probably tone it down, even for 1920, right?
Yeah.
But, like, he's dead.
Yeah, it matters.
You're not... Buying a Lovecraft thing is not giving money to someone who's then going to use that money to amplify their shitty ideas.
Yeah.
That's why it's such a unique situation with Rowling.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard.
I think one of the things that's so compelling about it is the dissonance between her and her work.
Yeah.
Is the distance between how positive Harry Potter seems to be
and how
shitty like she has turned out to be. And it's bizarre. It's like,
it is bizarre.
It's like
I never would have guessed it like 10 years ago or whatever that this would be happening.
It's like if George Lucas showed up at a neo-Nazi rally. You're like, dude, the Empire. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, why? What do you think that was about? You made it.
It doesn't compute. Yeah. So me personally, like, it's not even for me, and it seems to be most critics who are deciding to cover the game are citing what I said earlier, that there are people working on this game. I want to make sure those people get paid for a job well done, et cetera, et cetera. That's not even it for me. We're going to cover this next week. I don't know if Matt's going to play it. Maybe not. If he doesn't want to, that's totally fine. I am going to play it, and we are going to talk about it next week on the show. But that's because of my editorial background of I just review what's on the game disc that they send me. To me, my job is to tell you whether a game is good enough or not to decide whether the profits made from that game are going to be used for good or bad. So that's my stance on it. That's why I am going to cover Hogwarts Legacy in next week's episode of GameFace. But at the same time, after having this discussion with you, I already knew. But even further, after having this discussion with you, I totally understand where you're coming from and respect your decision as well. So,
and by the way, I am going to consult with about my trans friends and sort of talk, because I'm torn on this game.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, like, I don't want to give her any money or support. On the other, like, the reviews have been so weird, and the whole situation is so. I feel like I am on like poor footing if I haven't played it and don't know what I'm talking about from the point of view of the game. Because I do think, for the most part, I have not. If there were major reviews that got into the political ramifications of J.K. Rowling's beliefs, I didn't see them.
And would you feel right about that if, like, the reviews mentioned stuff?
I think you need to review the game as the game.
Yeah.
In the same way that, like, if I was going to review a Roman Polanski movie, I would not get into the things that Roman Polanski did.
Yeah.
But if there are things in the movie or the game that relate to weird shit, like I would bring up the Jewish stereotype element of the goblins,
sure,
or like aspects of the blood libel that are in the child sacrifice subplot in this game.
If it's in the game, it's fair game.
But unless there's a thing where a famous children's author donates a lot of money to an anti-trans organization, I don't see a reason for that to be in your review of Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah,
and as far as I know, that's not a plot point. I believe there is a trans student in the game. The first officially trans character in a Harry Potter work.
That might have been a fig leaf.
Yes, that was the developer basically trying to, like, figure. And apparently it was somewhat cleared. And I think you can be a trans student. Your character can be, or something like that. I'm not clear.
So it sounds like at least some of
the developer has tried to mitigate
the damage.
The damage, for sure. Yeah. Like, it feels like Avalanche's heart is in the right place, and they're just. Avalanche and whoever. What's the Portkey Games is the other the official Harry Potter developer thing. I'm not sure what the division of labor was on that.
Portkey is in all the promotions, so
yeah. So I assume they were maybe more involved than we thought.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had in my head that Avalanche was the lead.
My guess is Avalanche probably did a lot of the heavy lifting with the engine and
Portkey
probably handled the design.
Definitely feels like you hire Avalanche as like kind of how you've done this before. You know how
to build an open world.
Yeah, sort of like how people keep bringing Crystal Dynamics in for third-person games.
Yep, agreed.
So yeah, I think and for the most part, from what I've seen, I haven't read all the reviews, but it seems like that's what everybody did. Like, because it is fine to talk about social and political ramifications of the content of a work. Like, I'm certainly, one of my big templates for reviewing and criticism is Roger Ebert, and he never shied away from that. But he never really brought the creators into it outside of what the work says. And I think that's kind of the angle you need to take if you want to be a serious critic of the medium. And I believe that goes beyond Consumer Reports to me. You need to inject your opinion. This gets into the whole thing about objective, subjective. Reviews are subjective. I'm sorry. If it's objective, that's a bullet point list.
Well, there's certain things that are either in a game or are not in a game.
Oh, sure. I mean, but
then your opinion on whether they're actually good or bad
either the shot is in focus or the shot is not in focus, but you also need to talk about the themes and how they relate to this and that. You can't talk about it, and especially nowadays. I mean, I guess it was more in the 16-8-bit era, maybe it was easier to talk about a game like you'd review a car.
Yeah,
but
it's harder now.
I think it's harder now because they have become more and more art objects. I mean, we're not talking about it today, I don't think, but I did play some of Season. There's no way to objectively talk about that game. That game, the major feature of that game is that it put me to sleep 3 times.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
But you have to give someone your experience. Roger Ebert would always give you his experience. Joe Bob Briggs will always give you his experience. Yeah. Lester Bangs will always give you his experience with the music.
I think we do that here on GameFace with the games that we play.
Yeah. And I think people try to do that for the most part. That is how people try to write game reviews.
Yeah.
And usually you're on the other side of this where everyone's screaming about how that review is biased and you need to be objective in your reviews, and you have to explain to someone that a game review, any kind of review, is by definition a subjective opinion.
Yeah.
But I would argue that no, you do not have to have inclusion of the J.K. Rowling controversy around this included in a review of Hogwarts Legacy. I think you can review the game on its own merits, especially since she did not personally direct it or anything.
Yeah.
I could see maybe bringing that up if something in a Fantastic Beasts movie tied in with something that you thought was related to her weird political social agenda. Because she writes though, she's the credited screenwriter on those. But yeah, and I think for the most part,
even just her cash and checks.
Even the IGN review, which does seem to have some, it feels to me that the person writing the IGN review is struggling with what the game is and its shortcomings and what the game represents and her shortcomings.
And that it was the game she had waited a really long time for.
And their huge fandom of Harry Potter on top of that. You can feel the tension between those things in that review. And in the end, the review, I think, maybe airs too far on the side of let's make sure everyone knows I recognize the flaws of this game, but I love Harry Potter so much I don't care. And then the numerical score turns out to be something a little weird.
Now, there is some value to that for a specific type of person, like her.
I'm also the other
big Harry Potter fans are going to read that and be like, she's me, so I'm buying that game.
Well, and the other thing to say is that, and this is, I think, an argument that's gone on with game reviews for as long as I can remember, there is a difference between what you will get out of the written part of the review that way and then the score.
Yeah.
Nothing can strip the textual review of nuance quite like having to put a number on it.
Yeah.
And I understand. That's why Eurogamer went scoreless so soon, so early. Was they were trying to do much more nuanced criticism, and when you have to end up still boiling that all down to a number out of 100 or whatever Eurogamer's
whatever your scale
was, it can feel either limiting or cheap. And we ran into that. We didn't run into that with a 5-point scale on X-Play so much. But
those reviews were easy, man.
Those were easy.
I could play a game for 2 hours and know where it fell on the 5-point scale.
For sure. But we ran into it with trying to translate those scores to Metacritic.
Yeah.
Because Metacritic would insist that a 3 out of 5 was a 60.
Yeah.
Which is not what a 3 out of 5 meant on our scale. We were not. I mean, look, in a perfect world, yes. That a 60 would not be seen as a bad score for something, but it is. So that's not what we meant by a 3, and that was a constant argument to the point that eventually X-Play scores were no longer listed on Metacritic.
That's why we never submitted our game eval scores
because we didn't want them to drag down the Metacritic score because that could affect the bonuses and the
we were reviewing games with our evals. We review games, evaluate games on the real 10-point scale.
Yeah,
and so most games were coming in like a 4.5,
which meant you didn't fit into the aggregate.
So our review scores were like 4.5 to like 7.5 or something like roughly. And I was like, I'm not going to cost someone their bonus because we review games on a scale that other people aren't reviewing it on. So we just never submitted our scores to Metacritic or any other aggregate site. So, but then again, you have to take that on yourself. You have to really care about the people who are making the games. A lot of people would just be selfish and be like, F that. I'm putting my game eval up on there because it's going to drive a ton of traffic to us. Yeah. But I wasn't going to do it. Was it a mistake? I don't know. But I'd rather be able to go to sleep at night. That's all I can say. So,
I would judge it differently between, like, say, someone with a small site who doesn't have the clout or the ability to, like, who needs those views versus, like,
me.
Yeah, like you. Yeah, like it's Sifted.
I needed it.
But
Yeah.
Game Trailers was a big corporate entity, and so that was a different thing.
Yeah.
We probably needed it at XPlay. That was probably one of the. I mean, what really killed us was DirecTV removing us from
that did it.
But like that was always a frustration, was that we could not.
Yeah, it makes a difference. You get a lot of pin action from being on those aggregate sites. It's just the way it is.
I was in some very heated speakerphone calls. Believe you me.
Yeah. Let's go to the chat, because this is. I don't want to spend it. We could probably do the rest of the show just looking at what you guys, because I could just see out of my peripheral vision that the chat was exploding. I could just see the scroll going on as we were discussing this. So I know a lot of people have points that they wanted to share. Tiny blip in history. If this game wins Game of the Year, the world will flip out. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, there's too many other great games coming out this year. I don't think that'll be a problem.
I think Spider-Man 2 is going to be able to crack that elusive 90 Metacritic this time. I don't want to harp on the Spider-Man is worse than Hogwarts Legacy thing, but come on. Like, and that's not even a Hogwarts Legacy criticism so much as, like, every once in a while I'm forcibly reminded that Spider-Man was really underrated in the reviews.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that has an 87 Metacritic is baffling to me.
Yeah. Is there any reviewer getting flack for just reviewing the game? I don't think so.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there are if you go through Twitter and find people complaining that... I mean, the most I've seen is people complaining that anyone is reviewing the game.
Yeah.
And there are... So one thing I did notice, and this may just be the algorithm knowing who I am. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I have not seen Hogwarts Legacy pop up on anything on Steam. Like, I have to go look for it on Steam. And I'm kind of like, is Valve not promoting the game? Is it not putting it up? Because it's not up on the big billboard things, you know? I didn't see it. Whereas on Epic Game Store, it's the size of my screen. So I thought that was interesting. That might just be... But Hogwarts Legacy is absolutely the kind of game that Steam's algorithm would think I'd play because it's an open-world action RPG. I don't know. It's interesting.
Estmont, I don't care about Harry Potter or the game, but all these people politicizing everything is stupid. I agree with Shane. Go look at creators and you'll find a lot of bad things. Enjoy life is too short to live like that. I would not just blanket say that I would do that, but I believe there does come a point where it's like, how far down the rabbit hole do you got to go before you're consuming pop culture in a way that isn't hurting other people? Like, I mean, maybe it still is going to hurt other people, but maybe you should feel guilt over the end result of it. It could keep you awake at night. Like,
yeah, I'm not like. Again, like, the thing about that is, like...
Wampler, I'm still weirded out when I hear Pretty Young Thing. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who react that way to Michael's music now. I'm one of them. Still, I cringe sometimes when I hear some of his songs. I'm like, I'm still not ready for it yet. I'm not ready to be reassimilated into pop culture. I'm just not. Imagine if Jeff Keighley put this on the Game Awards. Replying to Red Fox, this game deserves just as much as coverage as the other games. Keighley did put it on the Game Awards. It's been on the Game Awards.
Yeah, it did go on the Game Awards.
One of the trailers on our TriCaster is called the Game Awards trailer.
Yeah, that's true.
He did. He already did.
And if the panel at the end of the year votes to nominate for stuff, it will be nominated for stuff. I'm sure. Like, he's not going to step in on that. I can't see that happening.
I can't get to all your comments. This topic, though, I mean, look at this, Matt. This is the most feedback we've had on a topic on GameFace, maybe ever. Yeah. Because it's just, you're right. I mean, at the end of it all, this has never happened before. This is an unprecedented thing that's happening right now. And it's hard to blame anyone for how they're going to react to it.
Yeah, rolling is a singular event. It's not just powerful person, rich person, anti-trans person, right-wing person, left-wing person, popular. It's a very specific series of events that can only happen with this one particular person because of what she did, what she wrote, what she meant to so many people, what she meant to this entire generation, how that generation kind of grew up to largely support this one thing that she now opposes. Yeah. And it's
Here's what I find funny about this. So there's these people in the chat saying, next topic, move on. No, the chat is proving you wrong that it wasn't time to move on. Look at it. Look at how much people had to say about this. No, it wasn't time to move. I feel like people who say that are uncomfortable with their beliefs sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. obviously...
People who say that don't agree with us and don't
Right.
Don't
Obviously, it wasn't time to move on because look at what everybody had to say about this topic. I mean, it goes on and 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 on. So obviously you were wrong. It wasn't time to move on. People had things that they wanted to say about this. And I do get it on some level. You come to watch GameFace, you're like, I just want to hear whether a game's good or not. But if you watch GameFace, you know you're never just going to get that from this show. Mm-hmm. That's not how we roll. We care about this stuff. And obviously, based upon our chat, a lot of other people care too. So,
and that, by the way, like... That's what the best critics are. I'm not saying we're the best critics,
right.
But I'm saying like the critics I aspire to emulate are people who contextualize work in the larger context of humanity, the human experience, the societal experience, and yes, politically. Yeah. Like that has always been a thing. And all my favorite critics do that. Going all the way back to the 50s and going back to even Pauline Kael did that.
And Mellow Pintor. Those are the guys who know their opinions are shit, but would rather not get into it.
Pretty much.
JM Rain 99 says, this matters to me deeply. I am going to encourage people to not buy the game new. I totally understand, totally respect that opinion. And I think at the end of the day, that's really what we need to do, is we need to respect that this is a very unique situation and that everyone's going to react to it in their own way. And I do think there are some extremes that most people could say, that's the wrong way to look at it. But let's take a step back before we go after people over the next week here, because this isn't going to end. The game still isn't even out yet. Most of the reviews aren't even out yet.
This is going to be gaming discourse until the next big game comes out, whatever that happens to be. And I don't know what the next big thing is.
Yep. So anyway.
What is the next big thing after this?
I mean, March. This is the big game for
This is the big
February
game, but what's the next big thing?
Probably RE4 remake.
I feel like there's got to be something earlier in the...
It's in March.
It's late March, but it's got to be... Atomic Heart is soon.
But that could be a 4. That could be a 9. We don't know.
What I was thinking of was Jedi Survivor, but they got delayed.
Yep. Yeah,
so that is also late March.
Yeah.
Or no, it's April now, isn't it?
Like a Dragon Ishin. It's probably one of the
Well, I don't think that's going to change the direction of the discourse. I am looking forward to it, yes.
Yep. But anyway, I will just say this. Like, looking at our chat, you guys were also very respectful of each other. And that's great. And that is the type of audience that I have tried to propagate on Sifted. That was the objective from the beginning, is to create an audience of people like you.
There's another game I'm not going to play. Because I've already played the demo.
Nothing to do with it culturally.
That was enough for me, was the demo. I clearly do not need to... Oh, PSVR 2, right. Yeah, that's true.
So I just want to say thank you all for being amazing people, which I knew already because I interact with you guys all the time on Sifted. And I know you're all good people. So it's good to see it coming through in our chat, especially with sensitive topics like this. That you guys all respect each other and you treat each other as equals with varying opinions. So that's great to see. So we'll be back to talk about Hogwarts Legacy.
Meanwhile, in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, exactly. Whole different story. It really is. It's so funny, too. So last week, I opened the show talking about how I lost one of my best friends. And, like, YouTube comments, nobody even mentioned that. It's just like it didn't even happen. And if they found something that they didn't like about what I said or you said, they're like, Shane, blah, 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 Matt, blah, blah, blah. It's like the human part of it on YouTube is just gone. Mm-hmm. There's no humanity there. And maybe part of it is like the YouTube audience is just like skip, and they don't watch the intro.
No, they just don't hear the human parts.
Maybe.
Because if you
or they just ignore it.
Because we're the enemy to them.
I guess. Why would I be the enemy? It's so
because
dumb.
we disagree with them.
I guess, yeah. So anyway... I love you guys. You're all awesome, but I knew that already, and you guys knew that already. And we'll talk about this game again next Tuesday. I will play it. Matt, do what you want to do. Totally cool. If you don't play it, then you can just ask me questions about it or whatever. But we'll figure it out, and we'll talk about it again next Tuesday. That's Hogwarts Legacy. Next up, another big game that was blown out this week. Tekken 8. We got some initial trailers for it. We know already that it's a next-gen exclusive, only coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series, and that was pretty much where it all ended. But we didn't know a whole lot more about Tekken. Well, this week, they blew the game out. They did a huge 40-minute presentation where they literally just walked you through all the systems. Now, I will say this. It was dry AF. So if you guys saw that and you were like, I'm not watching that, I get it. And that's why we're here. Because it was a 40-minute piece that we're going to wrap up in like 8 minutes. Because that's how we roll here on GameFace. They went through all the systems in the game for Tekken 8.
They revealed some of the worst new looks for fighting game characters I have ever seen. Like, Paul Phoenix is a fictional man, but he should still sue them.
I know.
What is she wearing? Why is she wearing a jacket over that?
I don't know.
What?
This was the other thing. They announced Nina is returning.
Yeah, well, duh.
Duh. I mean, most of the characters I've seen for this so far have been duh.
Yeah. Paul Phoenix has always looked like an idiot.
Yeah.
But, like,
he's like a knockoff Guile, basically.
Yeah, but now he's not even, like, he looks like some schlub you'd, like, avoid at a gas station. Like I don't... Or as said, was it John Green? John Green looks like the guy you would glance at in a Walmart.
Yeah,
and, like, that's Paul Phoenix in this game.
Yeah.
Like, you look at him, you're like, he's probably going to start some shit. Let's get out of here. Like,
I feel like this game should look better, Matt.
I mean, I think it looks... I think technologically it's really looking good.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah, it's just particles and lights and I think aesthetically it's not great, but that's tech. I mean, look, to me, that's Tekken. Tekken has always been ugly.
This game should look ace. It's next gen only. You're drawing, and this isn't one of those games where like the environments like are destroyed and you fall down to other. What you see is what's there. Like you're not rendering a ton of polys to create the stage. Like the characters and everything else should look mind blowing. They look good. I'm just a little disappointed.
I think they do look really good, and I think there's tons of special effects and particle stuff and everything. I mean, they are. This is next gen only for sure. That look what Paul looks. Paul looks like John Connor from Terminator 2 grew up and got fat. Like, I don't... What is happening here? Like, how did he go from the Ken ripoff to this?
He kind of looks a little bit like Bill from The Last of Us.
He does look a little bit like Bill.
From the video game version of Bill.
Yeah,
not the TV show version.
It's like, this is a long way to go to get a car battery, dude. You're not getting through law. I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, what really matters is how it plays. Let's be honest. If you're a fighting game fan, like what matters is the play. The systems.
I think it looks.
It doesn't look bad.
I just don't agree with the art style. But like that is not a new thing for Tekken for me. I think Tekken has always been ugly.
Yeah.
I think it's trademark.
This is the first raw gameplay they've shown for this, by the way.
Yeah, they showed what I think was probably gameplay, but it was all cinematic.
Yeah, it's all cut with weird camera angles. This is the first time they show the actual game being played. Now, if you go and actually watch the developer doc, it's 40 minutes, and they show a ton of gameplay, but it's all like picture-in-picture stuff. This is the only direct feed full-screen gameplay that they had included, and I went in and edited it all. It took forever to chop these little bits out to give you guys good B-roll, so hopefully you're enjoying watching it.
I mean, it certainly looks like Tekken. Like gameplay-wise.
Yeah, juggles and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. The main tenets that they struck out to try to accomplish with this is letting players be more aggressive without being punished for it. They also wanted to be able to onboard...
God, I hate that character design. I really do. Like, I can't get over how much I hate Paul's design.
They also wanted it to be easy to onboard new players, so there's some things in the game that make it easier for people to understand. Like, it has the control scheme map where you can just assign combos to a button. Mm-hmm. So you hit a button, and then your character does like 5 different attacks all strung together.
Right.
And the difference here is that you'll be allowed to use that to play online. Mm-hmm. Whereas with Street Fighter, they have that functionality, but you can't use it online. Here, they're going to let you use the one-button combos online. I have a feeling that might be something that's changed over time.
I don't think it will.
No? You think they'll leave it that way?
Yeah.
They won't allow it in tournaments, though, right?
No one in a tournament would use it.
You'd never have a chance anyway.
Well, yeah.
If you're using one-button combos, you have no chance.
Because here's the thing, especially with a game like with Tekken, it's not about being able to do the combo nearly as much as being able to get the combo in unblocked. Like, you've still got to connect.
Yeah.
And if you're just doing an auto combo without waiting until you've actually hit them or hit confirming, you're just opening yourself to punishment.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to change. It's not going to change the playing field when you're up against someone that knows what they're doing.
Yep.
That's. I'm sure that's fine. I can't imagine a lot of Tekken, like hardcore Tekken players, are going to be like shaking in fear over that one.
Andy T. Monatan says he just ran out of gel. That's good. So there are several...
in the grim future of Tekken 8, there is no more hair gel. Nina took it
Dystopia.
all. That's where they're fighting.
She used it all for her helmet.
That's why she has the jacket. That's where all the hair gel is. And he's trying to get it.
So there are several systems.
Probably makes more sense than the story that's actually in this game.
It definitely does. You know it does. This is Tekken, by the way. So there are several systems they put into the game. I'm going to give you a quick synopsis. Again, you can go watch the developer doc. It's on Sifted if you want all the gritty details. But here's like the Crib Notes version. The Rage system, which was started in Tekken 6, returns.
Look at all the shit happening there. It's particles everywhere. I mean, the rain looks better than it does in Resident Evil 4. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that's for sure. The Rage system gives players boosted attacks when their health hits a certain threshold. So basically, it gives you a chance to come back. If you're getting your butt whooped, you basically dole out more damage until they can finish you off. Do you like that mechanic in general?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I comeback mechanics are just part of fighting games, especially now. Like, I prefer something on the level of, like I like the X Factor in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, because it did basically the same thing, but it was limited. Yeah. Like, it didn't last the whole time. You had a brief window where you could, do a nice little comeback and do a lot of extra damage and move a little faster and stuff.
The rage system in this, you actually control how much you use. So I think there's 3 different levels. And the first one just gives you a slight damage advantage. The second one gives you the damage advantage plus like priority in combo or whatever. So there's 3 different levels you can use for the rage system. They're also now easier to execute with the controller versus how they were in Tekken 6. And then rage drives, which were used during rage to extend combos, have been removed. And those were moves that you could do. If you were good enough, you could extend the time for rage if you pulled off these certain moves. But those have been removed now for balance purposes. It also uses the health recovery system from Tekken Tag Tournament, so another way to kind of regain health. But since there's no tag mechanics, in order to recover the small chunks of health, you have to do that by attacking the opponent after blocking their big attacks or after taking aerial damage.
Yeah, it's kind of the Bloodborne system.
A little bit, yeah. They include it to encourage the more aggressive nature from players, since if you don't attack, you won't recover health. So again, everything they're doing with this new fighting engine is to encourage you to keep pressing, to keep attacking instead of turtling.
Which is weird because Tekken's not a huge turtle game.
It's not.
Really.
No, it's not at all.
If you told me what the problem with Tekken 7 was, too defensive would not have been my.
Well, it's like you like to say all the time. It's a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it just feels like with the fighting games, Street Fighter 6 has some elements of this too, where it's like you just needed something new. Yeah. Like you needed a new system.
Something to say when people search what's new in Tekken 8. Actually, something comes up.
Yeah. You could definitely argue that. I mean, I guess changing up the rage drive thing is one. But Tekken 7 kind of nailed it. I don't know if you really.
Which is why it was popular for the first time in a long time. For
Tekken 7 is one of the first times that I've ever had interest in watching high level Tekken play. Back when I first started covering the tournament stuff, back in 2008 when that got big again for G4, I remember when in the grand finals night when Tekken came on, because I was friends with a lot of the Street Fighter players and all those guys, the Marvel players. When Tekken came on, we just all went to dinner. Yeah, and then we came back 2 hours later and did that. And now people would stick for Tekken 7. For that was Tekken 6 or whatever. Maybe it was 5 at that point. But Tekken 7, people stick around and watch that because it's really interesting.
Yep, and now there is one brand new system, completely brand new to Tekken 8. It's called the Heat system, and this one really encourages confrontation. It's basically a period of time where it's overwhelmingly beneficial to be an attacker. You basically press a shoulder button to activate it, and your character turns into blue flames that last for 10 seconds. You have 5 different heat engager attacks per character. They're different for each character in the game, so 5 different attacks that you can utilize during that 10-second window. And you can extend the duration of the heat by piling on the damage. So they removed it from one of the systems and they actually brought it back for the brand new Heat system. You can also utilize heat burst attacks that slam the other character on the ground, and then that also initiates Tekken's always popular juggles. Love them or hate them, they are going to return for Tekken 8, as you've already seen in this B-roll. That feature actually comes kind of from Tekken 6. But the entire Heat system is gated by a currency called Heat Energy that you can expend at various levels, as I mentioned earlier. Blocking heat attacks enables chip damage. However, you cannot die from chip damage, which is an interesting kind of dichotomy.
That was also true in Street Fighter.
Yeah.
5.
Yeah, so you can't get cheesed to death, basically, which is good. I'm okay with that. And then, as we mentioned...
I'm surprised it took so long for that to be a standard thing.
It is, yeah. as we mentioned, there are multiple control schemes. There's the typical Tekken control scheme, and then there's the one that I mentioned earlier, and that's called Special Style, and that combines the easy combo and assist features from Tekken 7, where single buttons can be assigned to combos. And then that's it. The only other small tidbit that they shared is that the team behind Fighting EX Layer are handling the netcode for the game. And apparently the netcode for that Fighting EX Layer was like God tier.
Yeah, that is some pristine rollback there.
Yep. And so
which was a problem with 7, that they never got rollback on that. Or if they did, it was very late.
Yep. And so they have the right guys on the job for the online play. So overall, I think Tekken 8's looking pretty good.
Yeah. But we still don't know when.
Yeah, they still have no release date. Just this year is all they're saying right now, which means it could get released next year. Who knows? I didn't see a lot of people drafting it on their fantasy team.
My guess is they're targeting October, November.
Yeah, probably Q4. But right now, we don't have a hard date. I think what we're seeing so far of Tekken 8 is pretty good, and building on maybe the best Tekken ever, which was Tekken 7, which, as Matt mentioned, brought it back into prominence in the esports scene and made it a legitimate game for competitive play. So I think Tekken 8's looking pretty good in pretty much every way. I think the modes are looking good. I think the look of the game is okay. Technically, it's one of the better looking fighters ever released.
I think technologically, I think they're really doing the job. I think it's kind of everybody's kind of ugly. I mean, that's Tekken.
You're also not a big Tekken fan.
No,
either.
I never liked Tekken.
Like, do you think you'll play it when it comes out, Tekken 8?
Not for $70.
Yeah,
like
because it will be.
Yeah,
it'll be $70. Yep.
Like I don't.
That extra $10 makes a difference.
I mean, I don't hate Tekken, but it just doesn't really do a lot.
I find myself when I buy games, I research now whether the PS4 version is the same as the PS5 version. Because a lot of times they are. Because you got to realize PS4 games still need to run on the PS4 Pro. So they're going to be 4K even just for the PS4 version. Now, some developers actually go the extra mile and make the PS5 version look a little better than the PS4 version. A lot do not. So
this one does not have that problem.
Yeah,
so.
I actually research that stuff before I buy PlayStation games now. So something to keep in mind going forward. But anyway, there you go. That's Tekken 8. No release date. Coming to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. Next up, we're going to talk about Xbox. I know we did a big preview of Xbox a couple weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now, to kind of go through all the stuff that was coming out in 2023, and we did that with all the platforms. However, we got some news over the last week and a half that some of the games that we would assume are going to be killer apps for Xbox are actually properties that may be in a little bit of peril. So the first warning sign was that it was reported that 343, the studio that was formed just to create Halo games after Xbox lost Bungie, was not going to be developing Halo going forward. And that was like a big story, and people were freaking out. They're like, who's going to make the Halo games now? And blah, blah, blah. And then 343 came out and tried to say, hold on, slow your roll. We're still working on Halo. However, Matt, like, some of the stuff that they said didn't add up. So basically what they said was, we are still working on the stories and the multiplayer from the Halo franchise, which when I read that led me to believe that, okay, you guys are going to handle the lore. You're in control of the Halo Bible and deciding what's canon, what's not canon, what stories are going to be told and what kind of games and etc. And you're responsible for multiplayer of Halo going forward, making sure that people care about it after a week after it's been released, which has not been the case with Halo Infinite, let's just be honest. And then what about the campaign? Who's doing that?
I'm going to guess nobody is doing that.
Do you really think that's what's happening?
The original rumor was that all the single player, all the campaign stuff was canceled. And then Bungie, or 343 did kind of be like, no. I'm like, but okay, well, we'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, that statement to me was not definitive.
It was not very convincing.
Yeah.
I mean, all I'll say is that
this is a killer app. This is supposed to be one of Xbox's biggest properties. It's
not, though. Like Halo.
Has Halo turned into Metroid?
A little bit.
It kind of feels like it.
Here's the thing about Halo is, like, you know, not everything needs to last forever.
Yeah.
Halo might be done.
I mean, E3 was kind of coming to that realization with E3.
Yeah. Halo might. Also, like, during all this conversation about Halo, and somebody brought up like the season 2 of the TV show, and I forgot that TV show happened.
Right, yeah.
Until someone mentioned that the season 2 was actually happening. I'm like, oh, right, that was a thing. I completely forgot that show happened.
Isn't it shocking that they basically gave the new Halo away, and it wasn't even discussed like 2 weeks later? No. When conceivably all these people got to play it that either wouldn't want to play it or didn't think it was worth the money.
Well, because Halo's done. Like because the thing you forget, because like Halo's like such a big IP and everybody knows what Halo is and everybody knows it.
My mom knows what Halo is.
Yeah, everyone knows that. But you know what? In Halo Infinity had to do the same thing that fucking Back 4 Blood had to do. They had to take people away from the thing they were already spending all their time playing.
Yep.
They had to lure people away from the multiplayer games that they had begun to play regularly instead of Halo, because Halo multiplayer hasn't been a hot thing for how many years. So
I really tried.
Halo had to basically lure everyone away, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Like, and look, like, you know, like Vincent's saying Halo's not done, but Halo Infinite is mostly done. How many times does Halo have to fall on its face before it's time to admit it's time to stop throwing $200 million at this thing?
Yeah, I mean, how many more chances do you give it?
This is the third time.
Yeah, you're right. 4, 5, Infinite.
It might be time to move on.
Yeah.
And maybe bring it back, like, you know, in a big reboot in 10 years. But after everyone's forgotten that Halo is kind of an also-ran now.
Now, even though people, it appears, have decided that they don't care about Halo anymore, what if they were to announce something like that, Matt? Do you think it would still negatively impact their business? If they were to say, you know what, Halo's going on a hiatus for 10 years, and we'll bring it back when it makes sense?
What would people do? Play the game? Like, there's nothing. What would change? Like,
well, people deciding whether to buy an Xbox or not. They're like, oh,
I don't think you announce that until you've got all these other things people want in addition. You know, like
so you're just saying that they just don't say anything and it just disappears for a while.
For a year or two. Like you got to have. I think you got to have. You know, Hellblade 2 and Starfield and Gears 6 and Avowed and, you know, some clear preview material for Elder Scrolls 6 in the bag before you start saying, like, Halo's gonna go away.
I mean, 343 also has lost significant talent. So
the other question is, do you have anything to replace? Does Halo need to be replaced in the lineup by another shooter?
That's what I'm getting at.
Like, because Gears, I mean, clearly, I don't know about people in general, but clearly Microsoft does not consider Gears and Halo to be really equivalents, because third person, first person, sci-fi versus kind of more gritty. You know, I mean, Gears isn't horror, but I don't think of it as science fiction really. It's a little more mystical.
We got a lot of Xbox fans in the chat freaking out. They're like, no way Halo goes away. That's crazy talk.
I mean, Halo, maybe no reason.
Not going on hiatus.
I mean, if it didn't, it's only because of Microsoft's inability to know when the game is over. Like, I mean, it's very likely it never goes away and there's no such thing. But I'm saying, if you're going to look at it realistically, this franchise is done for a while.
I mean, my question is it even consequential anymore? Does it matter?
Doesn't seem to. I mean,
that's what I don't think it does. I don't think
seem to.
It's hard to believe that we get to a place this soon, this quickly.
Because not only did Halo Infinite not really catch fire, there wasn't a lot of consternation over the fact that it didn't catch fire.
No, there's no moment in the game that everyone talks about. There's no iconic anything in it.
And the multiplayer didn't hold anyone's attention, and no one really complains.
Because the progression was glacial.
But no one really complained. Like, you don't see people with hot takes about, like, oh my god, I can't believe Halo's. Everyone's just sort of moved on.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it was Halo Infinite. And they moved on because it was free, basically.
Yeah, that's part.
If people had paid for it,
they didn't feel like they were losing anything,
right?
So there wasn't worth screaming
I do wonder
about.
if it would have been, if the backlash would be worse if people had paid for the game.
That's possible. Yeah.
So this is supposed to be one of Xbox's killer apps. I really struggle to say that anymore that it is. Particularly when you look at some of the stuff that's coming down the pipe from some of its internal studios that, to me, look far more interesting than what anher Halo would.
Yeah,
I don't know. Care about Master Chief's story anymore? I really don't.
No, Master Chief's story was completed in Halo 3.
Yeah.
There's room to tell stories in the world. I mean, look, my favorite Halo game is ODST.
A lot of people say that.
I think that was the most, because it was a little more interesting to play as that side of things after seeing the Master Chief side of things for so long, and I think kind of the boots on the ground aspect of the war with the Covenant was more interesting than the mystical nonsense that you got into.
Yep.
And I mean, the Halo 4 through 6, and that's what this is Halo 6, let's be honest. They felt like you're just, Master Chief goes in search of a plot. Like, there's nothing happening. Halo 5 especially was just a wow.
Andy Team on it. He's on a roll today. He said it goes back in stasis like Master Chief.
Yeah.
You're funny today.
Wake him when you need him, because apparently you don't need him right now.
Erebus Jones says if you wanted a superhuman space marine in an opaque helmet to fill the void, they've got the other guy in their stable. They do, because now they have Doom.
And you can make Doom do a lot more different things. I mean, Doom Eternal, you could not make that with Halo because Halo has to fit a certain mold.
Doom,
I mean,
a lot more malleable.
Yeah, I didn't like Doom Eternal as much as Doom 2016, but I understand why it works that way. And a lot of people did love it. It became a very high skill level game, especially in the speedrun community. And like, you can do that with Doom, but like, when you did that with Halo, you'd get like millions of people. If it was a hit, if you expect it to be a hit, all the Halo fans are gonna be like, "What the fuck is it?" Like, like you have more freedom there. I think Halo in some ways is a victim of its own success because it has to feel like Halo. It has to be recognizable as Halo, but also everyone's played Halo to death, and no one wants to play Halo anymore. like you're just sort of caught in
it's
this.
A catch-22.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. Like, how do you make Master Chief feel fresh again?
I don't know. But apparently again, as I say this all the time, that's not our job.
No, but apparently you take his helmet off and you have him fuck somebody. Like that was the solution for the show.
You're right.
But for the games, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
So I also think they should stop leaning into the brute enemies so much.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I think the worst thing that happened to Halo is that the Covenant War ended in 3.
Yep.
That was the hook.
Yeah.
It was a varied enemy force that did not need justification, and it really worked. And the brutes were just sort of this like other enemy type that showed up to be a big guy.
Each skirmish a little more difficult.
Yeah. And now it's just like
I didn't need entire games based on them.
Yeah, and now they're like the main enemy, and it's just like, I mean, even like Halo Reach, going back to play Reach and fighting elites again was great.
Yeah.
Like it's silly.
Yeah. It just feels like generally Halo ain't all that anymore. And it's not going to move hardware. It's not like this feather in the cap anymore. It's not something that Microsoft and Xbox can count on to move the needle for them anymore. That's a huge shift in a relatively short period of time. I saw one person in chat, Shora F, he is an actual developer, and he brought up that 343 also has had a dodgy track record with treating its developers and its employees as well. He said he's not losing any sleep over the fact that 343 may lose Halo. And maybe that's what's needed. Maybe it does need to go to a different studio with a different perspective.
The people that made Halo what it was back in the day do not work at 343.
Yeah. And more left just recently.
They all went to make. Most of them went to make Destiny. Some of them stayed behind, but I think a lot of those people have left too. The Kiki Wolfkill left.
Wait, she did?
She went to another division of Microsoft.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I missed.
When Kiki Wolfkill leaves 343, you are in trouble.
You guys probably don't know who she is, but what Matt just said,
you should know who she is because she is the greatest name in the history of human beings.
She really does. Kiki Wolfkill.
Kiki Wolfkill.
She's also awesome. She's behind the scenes generally on the Halo franchise, but Matt's right. I didn't hear that.
She went over to another
if she left the Halo
Microsoft
franchise,
thing.
That's a big effing deal. Because she was kind of the keeper of the canon, the keeper of the Halo Bible in a lot of ways.
Her and Marty were like the two remaining old guard.
She also worked on the TV show. She's also kind of like Miyamoto in that she handles all the cultural stuff around Halo as well to make sure they're not screwing it up. So that's a big, big deal. But it's not just Halo, Matt. There's another big franchise that you just kind of mentioned haphazardly a second ago that also things are starting to get a little funky.
Kiki Wolfkill seems to have has reportedly left 343 Industries to work elsewhere in Microsoft.
Maybe she's just going to do this TV show stuff full time now for all their properties or something. We'll see. There's another franchise that also we're starting to kind of wonder if it has the pull that it used to, and that is Gears of War. The Coalition... And now, it wasn't announced, but it leaked out this week that the Coalition had been working on 2 other games in addition to Gear 6. And both of those games were canceled. In fact, one of them was a smaller kind of indie-ish type thing, which we like to see from these bigger studios. When they get a chance to kind of just come up with a cool idea and execute on it, They were making a game along those lines. That was killed. Another bigger budget game was killed. And now, reportedly, they are all in on Gears 6, which I would argue is probably the right call if you're thinking about the bottom line and what's going to generate the revenue.
I guess, but you're going to give it away on Game Pass anyway.
Yeah. I mean, does generating revenue even matter anymore? I mean, that's kind of the crazy part about it. And this news comes from Jeff Grubb, by the way. I always want to make sure that we cite people who break stories. Jeff Grubb, who is still at Giant Bomb, by the way, he was not one of the layoffs, so he's still there, which is good to see because he's reported some great stuff. But yeah, he reported they had 2 other games in development that have now been killed to work on Gears 6. Now, I will say this, Matt. Gears 5, which we're seeing B-roll for right now, is incredible. It may be the best Gears of War game ever. I really, really loved it. I really thought it was great. I remained gripped to it all the way to the end. Gears 4, not so much.
I'm done with this series too. Like 5 was definitely an improvement, but I don't really care what happens to anyone. And it's not even that so much as the gameplay isn't interesting to me anymore. Like the pop and cover thing, I really liked that originally, and I just. They struggle to come up with situations that make it into something else and something different or something fresh, and I don't find it generally compelling enough like to keep playing. I maybe got halfway through Gears 5.
I'll say this though, the Coalition are good developers because
they make it feel like Gears in a way that the Halo games don't feel like Halo.
Agreed. The other thing too is that Gears 5's code is clean as a whistle. They use that to promote like Windows, and because it literally scales so beautifully to whatever you're running it on. It's hard to believe it ran on the Xbox One. And not only did it run, it looked amazing on Xbox One.
It looked like a painting
base
on the right
Xbox
TV.
One.
Yeah.
So the Coalition is a great studio. The question becomes, should they be working on Gears at all anymore? Because, Matt, I feel like a lot of people agree with you that Gears has also lost its ability to move the needle. And this is, again, you got to remember, Microsoft and Xbox floated by for like 10 years on just Forza, Gears, Halo. Forza, Gears, Halo.
I think we're running into part of this. I don't have any actual concrete evidence for this, but I think we're running into a situation where the people calling the shots, and this includes people our age, let's be honest, the people calling the shots are old enough that they don't understand how much time is passing.
Yeah.
And to me...
Because that happens to me too, honestly.
Trying to make Gears 6 happen here is going to be like trying to make a Crash Bandicoot game in 2006. It's over.
Yeah.
It was the previous decade. There's probably a place for it later, but not right now. And I don't see where Gears fits into the modern gaming zeitgeist.
Like, is Gears 6 going to convince people to sign up for Game Pass? I really don't think it will.
I do think they probably won't call it Gears 6.
Yeah.
Probably call it Gears something
subtitle
else.
Something.
The number is getting high enough that you're just...
You don't want people to realize it's the 6th one anymore.
That's also why I'm kind of shocked that they haven't done that the Gears Trilogy Collection remaster thing with the Marcus games, because it feels like you'd want to have that all sort of there in a package deal for everybody to get their hands on, along with
at higher fidelity than it is. Yeah.
And it's not. It would be one thing if you'd sort of change the name so Gears 4, 5, and 6 could be their own trilogy, which they are clearly going to be their own trilogy, but because they are numbered 4, 5, and 6, people are going to feel like they don't know the story. They haven't played the first one.
It can be a turnoff for sure.
It feels weird jumping into 4 when you haven't played
the first 3. Yeah.
And I think their audience has grown, but I don't know. Like, it just look at how much brown and gray is on the screen.
That's always been Gears.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just there's nothing. I look at this and I don't get excited in the way that I get excited for like Space Marine 2.
So actually, someone in chat just mentioned they're more excited for that than they are for Gears 6. Yeah, Swanland said that he's more excited for Space Marine.
I'm also like. Look,
Brandon2149 brings up a good point. He says, why can't Gears or Halo be reinvented like God of War was in 2018?
That's true.
I don't see why not. Someone just needs to come up with the idea. I agree with you, Brandon.
Here's one of the things about like the Space Marine 2 comparison is I think about compared to looking at this is that Space Marine 2, when I think of that trailer, there's hundreds of enemies. He's knocking shit around. Things are blowing. Things are flying everywhere. He's hitting this guy and shooting this guy and kicking that Tyranid and like... clearly, Space Marine 1 was like this too, but because it was clearly Gears inspired. But clearly, Space Marine 2 is moving away, is not using the Gears limitations in terms of the movement system. Like, one of the things I feel like Gears needs to do is needs to get bigger. It needs to get bigger and more stuff and more agility. Like, you gotta get away from the big tanky dude.
They look tanky, so it feels like they make them like intentionally move tanky.
And Kate, is that her name? Kat? What's
the character in the game?
The new character you play? Kate. Like, she does move a little quicker. She's a little more spry than Marcus, but like the game still feels like it's playing on a grid.
I mean, that's the other thing too, is that you're playing with more than just Marcus now. It's like you play as like 4 characters every time you play a Gears game.
Yeah, and I don't care about really. Yeah. I think she's an interesting character. What they're doing with her with the Hive Queen and sort of the resurgence of the look. Like, I think they've found a much more.
They're doing a better job with the plot.
Yeah, they found a much more interesting narrative thread than Halo.
I agree with that for sure.
In part because they are free to move away from Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah.
Like, if I was still playing as like Grandpa Phoenix, I think I'd be about as bored as I am with Halo.
Yeah. To Brandon's point, though, these franchises, both of them, were handed to new developers. Who had a chance to find, and these people are talented. Look at this game.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, the Coalition is a really talented studio.
I can tell you the actual answer to that.
Is that they didn't want it to change, would be my guess.
That's not it. Well, I mean, they didn't want it to change, but there's a reason for that.
Money. They think that it would turn fans off, no?
Multiplayer.
Oh.
God of War did not have multiplayer and did not have to worry about their multiplayer mode being turned into something different by reinventing the game. It doesn't match
the rest of the game. Yeah,
because if God of War was a big multiplayer phenomenon, you could have maybe still done the 2018 version of the game, but you would have had to make a multiplayer mode that played like Gears of War 3.
Yeah.
And that is something they don't want to do with these games.
I think a lot of Gears' initial popularity, one, it was unique. Not a lot of people had played Winback to know what stop and pop gameplay was. But I think the other thing too is that it was one
Kill Switch. Kill Switch is the
Kill.Switch. Yeah. That the other part of it too is that like it was kind of the first game of that generation to show gore like that. Like,
well, it was
you played the game and it shocked you.
Well, it was
now they can't shock us anymore with that.
It wasn't
stuff.
Even that so much as it was the big debut of Unreal 3.
Yeah.
It was nothing else looked like Gears of War.
Yeah.
They were big
and consequently,
and
every other Xbox 360 game looked like it after
before we knew that was going to happen. But like, everyone was big and chunky, and there was detail everywhere, and everything. Like, the bump mapping was like stuff you'd never seen before, and you're like, how can you do that on a console?
The shaders
and hopping over stuff felt big and weighty, and everything felt like it was really there. Like, that was the thing, is it felt like you were playing in a concrete existing place.
Yeah,
and that's just not unique anymore.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the things that were selling points for Gears when it first launched aren't going to be selling points anymore.
Well, that's also because Gears was so influential that it kind of became it ended up kind of defining, like, the influence. It ended up sort of being a defining game of that generation, which means Gears feels old now because it feels like so many other things that were influenced by it.
Yep.
And that is a problem.
So here's
Halo has a similar problem.
Yeah. So here is the question. Like, so these are two huge pillars that have been for the last 15 years for Xbox and Microsoft. Are they not pillars anymore? And if they're not, what are they going to replace them with?
Hope they replace them with Starfield and Fable and Hellblade 2 and all these other things, and Avowed and Outer Worlds 2 and all these other games they've picked up through their acquisitions. I think that's what they have to do. I mean, these games don't have to be gone. They could be part of it. They could be part of the landscape, but I don't think you can call them pillars right now.
Do you still dedicate $200 million to developing them?
I absolutely wouldn't do that for Halo.
What about Gears
either? I don't
either, man.
I don't think so.
I don't think you're going to get an ROI, return on investment. I don't think it's going to happen. It's crazy to see these two huge franchises now struggling for relevance, but that's what's happening.
Yeah, nothing lasts forever.
Yeah,
things go in and out of except GTA.
They could keep remaking GTA until I'm 100 years old.
175 million copies.
It's insane. It really is insane.
Half the population of the country.
It's crazy. That's because a lot of people bought it twice.
Right, exactly. What the guy was going to say. How many of those are double and triple dips?
It's insane.
Probably a lot.
So anyway, look, there's a lot of good things happening at Xbox and Microsoft. There are a lot of new IP that's coming down the pike. All these new studios that they purchased, they're all working on stuff. But these are the two pillars, two of the three pillars.
They have been. I think if I'm Microsoft, I'm desperately hoping that one of these other new things hits. I think Starfield's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, you've got Elder Scrolls at the end of that road. You've got Elder Scrolls 6
once
down
every
in
15
2027 or 2028, wherever that is. You can just hang on for Elder Scrolls.
You're golden.
You're gold.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, we might have to suffer through another Halo game.
These are two 800-pound gorillas that are going to leave a big void if they're not continued. So it'll be interesting to see.
I think there's like 1,200-pound gorillas now.
Yeah.
And the 800-pound ones just aren't bringing them in anymore.
Yep. It's pretty weird to see. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk very briefly about kind of the same thing, except for PlayStation. Because recently, in an interview, Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann shared that he and the studio at Naughty Dog are not going to continue forward with its two biggest franchises, Uncharted and The Last of Us. And the interesting part, Matt, is that this is all coming on the heels. And in fact, the interview happened after the first couple episodes of the show on HBO had already aired, and people were already freaking out over it. Does it seem stupid to you?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I think we've known or could have guessed for a long time that they were done with Uncharted.
But then, okay, so here's the other, very quickly. The angle to that is they put out a trailer, PlayStation did, this week that's just like a general PlayStation 5 trailer that looked like it's hinting at a new Uncharted.
I mean, I think Uncharted will continue. It's just Naughty Dog's not going to make it.
So they're just going to farm it out to Blue Point or somebody.
I mean, if you want to call it farming out, I mean, Sony's going to just take that and do what they want to do with it.
Yeah.
I think Naughty Dog just doesn't want to work on that because, again, that's also not Neil's property.
I do feel like Uncharted had run its course. Like I don't really care that much about getting another Uncharted for Naughty Dog.
No, I don't need to. I wouldn't be against an Uncharted sort of soft reboot that stars their daughter as sort of in the future kind of thing. Like that could work. But yeah, Uncharted was done with 3, in my opinion. I didn't kind of agree with 4.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Whatever.
The Last of Us, though, I feel like it's just getting going, man.
Well, The Last of Us, I don't believe him.
I don't either.
I think they will make 3.
I do too.
Because there's the way 2 plays out and the end of 2 and the themes of 2. There's clearly follow-up to be had.
The runway's there.
It's not subtle that they mean to follow that up. And I think you've got a solid trilogy shaping up. And you're gonna need an ending to the show. So this I think is what we've kind of I think they're managing expectations, especially after they admitted that they revealed Last of Us 2 too early.
Yeah.
So I think they're just saying we're not going to do another Last of Us. So please leave us alone. And then eventually they'll be like, oh, here it is.
And it's coming out in 3 months.
Coming out in like 6 months.
Yeah. I agree with you. The show, Matt, by the way.
They are still working on that other new, that fantasy IP thing.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'm sure
so they have new IP coming.
So I do believe that Uncharted is going to be given over to somebody else. But I do not believe for 1 second that Last of Us 3 isn't happening.
I don't either. I don't believe it either. The show, by the way, is like one of the first ever shows on HBO where the audience has built week after week. Yeah. Most shows that launch have their biggest audience week 1.
Yeah, bigger and bigger.
And then it gets smaller.
Even bigger again this week.
Yeah.
Even after everyone told me that that everyone would abandon the show because gay.
Oh, because of last week's episode. Yeah, I didn't think that at all.
How weird.
Because the show's great. That's why people are watching it. It's really flipping good.
And this week was great again.
Yeah, it's an amazing show.
You wanted more Joel and Ellie from last week? Well, here's this
Here you go. There's a whole episode of just them.
The joke book comes right out. There you go.
It was a great episode.
They nailed it.
They've all been great. The
next one's even sooner.
So
thank you, Super Bowl.
I don't think that Neil Druckmann's like a liar.
No.
I think he believes they're not going to make another Last of Us.
No, I do think he's a liar.
Oh, you think he knows he's going to make part 3?
Absolutely.
Really?
But he needs a story to. I think part of the problem here is in my guess would be he's got to write that game.
Yeah.
He needs a story worth telling. He needs to figure that out. And he has not had time to do anything like that because he has to executive produce the show and direct some episodes. Like, what this is, it's not damage control, but it's expectation management because they ain't going to be ready to talk about Last of Us 3 for a while.
Yeah.
Years, maybe.
Yeah, years. I'd agree.
So he wants it to be like... So he isn't lying in the sense that they aren't working on Last of Us 3.
Right now.
Yeah. But they will.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you.
Vincent says he said Sony isn't going to make them make The Last of Us.
Oh, they will absolutely make them make The Last of Us Part 3.
I don't know if Sony has that ability over them.
This show is just transcending everything.
But the people Sony should probably be transitioning Neil into their like television like the production side of things.
You think so?
I wonder if that's what he really wants to do.
I think it is. I think he's the American Kojima. I think he'd rather make TV and film than make video games.
Except he is good at it.
Right. He's really good at it.
I've been replaying some of Death Stranding. And people don't talk like that. People don't do anything like that.
Look, just because there's some people in chat are saying, "Oh, that's not the exact quote," I'm going to read the exact quotes because I don't want there to be any funny business after the show is over that Shane was misrepresenting something. Quote, "They have supported us every step of the way to follow our passions," meaning just that. Because something is successful, people think there's all this pressure and we have to make a sequel. That's not the case. That was his exact quote.
Yeah, so that just means they wouldn't make it. Yeah, they wouldn't force him to make a 3. They're going to make a 3.
Yes.
The show needs an ending, and I'm sure he wants the game to come out first.
Well, the thing is, people are going to want to play another game because this show is just gigantic.
They're also going to want to play another game because the second game leaves a bunch of stuff open.
The second game
there's more to tell. Clearly, there's more to tell.
Yeah.
This is not the end of Uncharted 3 where you feel like everything had kind of been tied up.
Yeah.
And like Uncharted 4 had to come in and be sort of like pry that open and introduce Poochie, the older brother. It's like, there's a lot more to happen with Abby and Ellie. Like what, Yeah. Like, there's no doubt whatsoever. But I do think it's going to be a while.
Let's go back to what we were talking about with Xbox, where, those two franchises would, them kind of going away or going on a hiatus, would it affect the bottom line for Xbox? We decided it probably kind of doesn't affect it that much because they've lost a lot of their luster. These two properties have not. However, do you think Uncharted being developed by a different studio might change perceptions of the brand in some way? People don't even know, right?
Of
the
what?
average person won't even know that the new Uncharted isn't made by the same people.
No, most people don't even know Uncharted and Last of Us were made by the same company.
You're right. That's true. That's actually true. I don't know that this is an analog for what's going on over at Xbox with Gears and Halo. It sounds like this is going to be maybe a little bit better managed than it was over at Xbox. But
I think the key here, and this has been true of most of Sony's stuff, if there's no good reason to tell more story with a particular IP, they are not going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, even God of War lay dormant until Cory Barlog came up with the revamp for 2018.
And decided to put real stories in the game.
If Neil says that this... Because I think more Uncharted is happening because Neil says it's okay with us if you move it somewhere else and do, milk that for as much as it's worth or whatever.
Yeah.
Because who fucking cares, basically? I mean... I think the story of The Last of Us is a much more... It's not maybe the right word, but it's a more sacred thing to them. It's a more planned and personal thing to the people who made it. Whereas Uncharted is a big rollicking adventure that can be basically anything it wants to be. And there's already a movie that they made that was really not great and starred Mark Wahlberg. So what else is left to do to Nathan Drake at this point? Who cares?
Yeah.
The bloom is off that rose.
Even though there was a movie that came out, how did the movie end up doing? Do you remember?
Nothing great.
Yeah,
it was.
That's what it deserved. Nothing great.
Believe me,
because that's what the movie was. Nothing great.
If I were to teach my hypothetical college course on adaptation from one medium to another, which I could use just the Last of Us show for and get through the whole semester, I would definitely be using the Uncharted movie as a contrast of how you don't do it.
To your point, if Neil had worked on the Uncharted movie, it probably would have been a lot better.
Maybe, but I think Neil didn't care about the Uncharted movie because Uncharted is not his baby.
Yeah,
he worked on them. He started on Drake's Fortune, but like he created Last of Us.
Yeah.
So that's his aim, I think. It's a more personal story to him, and it speaks to his experience in life. If you look that man's biography up, he went through some shit.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
He's speaking from he's writing from experience on a lot of these things.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be idiotic to not continue making the Last of Us games just solely based upon how the TV show.
Well, here's the thing. I think you're going to get 3, and that's it.
Yeah,
3 is
probably
going to be the end.
Trilogy.
And I think the idea is this other new IP will then be able to continue through that. Like that's the idea. I think is to create new stuff alongside the popular
as the other stuff dies.
So as you can sunset Last of Us and then focus on this fantasy thing they're doing, and then create something new alongside the. They seem to be able to do 2 games at once. So I think that's the move.
Okay.
But yeah, there will absolutely be a Last of Us. I don't think he's not saying there's no Last of Us 3 in that quote. He's just saying that if he didn't want to do Last of Us 3, Sony wouldn't make him. They probably would farm it out to some other studio they had. But
well, he said definitively they're moving on from the Uncharted series.
Yeah.
Well, there's no wiggle room there at all.
I mean, we've been waiting literally years for them to say that.
Yeah, and they're not feeling pressured into making The Last of Us Part 3.
Right.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't need any pressure to make Last of Us 3. I think the Last of Us story, I mean, at least through 3, maybe not beyond that, but it feels to me like Neil Druckmann had to tell this story. Like, I don't think anyone needed to encourage him to do this. This is something he has to get out of his brain.
He's in another one of his quotes, if we can't come up with something, we have a very strong ending with part 2, and that will be the end.
Yeah. That's a good thing to tell yourself to take the pressure off you when you're looking at the blank piece of paper.
That sentence is what made me nervous. I was like, ugh, I don't want to hear that.
I think that's more of an example of, like, we're not going to do this if we don't have to me, that's not supposed to make you nervous. It's supposed to make you confident, because he's saying, like, if we make it in that Last of Us 3, it's going to be because I came up with a story that I think is worthy of the previous 2.
Yeah.
Which is a big statement and an intimidating thing to probably have to sit down and write yourself. But that almost reads to me like a way of taking pressure off himself.
Yeah, could be.
And be like, I don't need, if I need to walk away from this and never finish Last of Us 3, I can do that, and no one's going to, there'll be blowback.
I'd be pissed.
But like, it's not like he's going to get fired or they're going to take Last of Us 3 away from him and give it to like Sony Bend or some shit. Like,
you don't think they would do that?
No, they will not. If
they decided they didn't want to make
if they want to lose Neil Druckmann, they can do that.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to lose one of your biggest talents, I guess you could do that. But that's
what if they told him you can write it and someone else will execute it?
No, like, you want him to work for you as long as humanly possible.
Yeah, agreed.
And anyone, especially after this HBO show, anyone
will snap him up. I mean, he's probably already getting offers from whoever.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's getting offers for actual just TV work or maybe even film work.
Right.
Like, he doesn't have to work for Sony anymore.
He has an eye for it. Yep. He's not just a video game developer anymore.
No.
He's
well beyond. He's done it. He pulled a Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
He went beyond his initial medium, and now he can do this other thing. And if he wanted to do that, he could. But I'm hoping we get a couple more games out of him.
Yep. Okay, so there you go. That's the core GameFace episode 329. But as always, we finish the show with... All right, people, it is time for Name That Game, where I show you guys 5 screenshots of a video game, and you try to guess the name of the game. Not only do you have to do that, though, you have to guess it before Kyle. Matt, who has won here in the last couple weeks, which is great to see. I'm just going to give you one hit before we get going. This is not a new or recent game. I haven't done enough of those. I haven't gone back enough and used older games for Name That Game, and we're going to do that today. Couple things to note. If you've already won this year, do not play, do not guess. Just sit back, kick up your feet, and watch everybody else flail around trying to guess the name of the game. Number 2, we put the chat on slow, meaning you can only submit a chat message once per minute. So don't just start spamming game titles into the chat hoping that you guess it right. You're going to lose.
Body Harvest.
What'd you say?
Body Harvest.
No. Where's Emperor Dread? There he is. Right on time. It's literally, you said that and it popped up in the chat. Not Body Harvest. This could have been your day, though, Emperor Dread, because I did go back into the archives a little bit for this one, but it's not.
The trouble is saying a game is older, because older can mean so many things now.
Particularly when I say it, because I've been playing games since the 70s. So it could go way back. It's not a game.
I've been here since 79. Don't. Here's asteroids.
Here's a hint. It's not from the 70s. So anyway, I show you a series of screenshots. You try to guess the name of the game. Chat's in slow mode. Don't just spam the chat. You need to really make educated guesses on this, because I guarantee you will lose, because the people in the chat are good at this. Like last week, they guessed it on the first screenshot. So mind your P's and Q's.
First guess.
First guess. Yep. Make your guesses count. And
Don't
with
mess
that,
with those Monster Hunter World devotees.
Yep. And with that, it's time for Name That Game. And here comes the first image. And if anybody gets it from that, I may give you 2 games.
Wow.
I told you I was going back and picking old games. Space Invaders, no.
Kind of looks like Mega Man Legends.
Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, no. Super Mario 64, no. Minecraft, no. That's a good guess.
Yeah, it's that voxel pixelated look.
Yep. 50 Cent, nope. Pokemon Stadium, no. Minecraft, no. Star Fox.
Escape.
Not Ape Escape. Good guess, though. Star Fox, no. Final Fantasy 7, no. Jumping Flash, no. Quest 64, no. A lot of Mario 64s, nope. Mega Man Legends, no. Banjo-Kazooie, no. Someone else guessed Ape Escape, but no. Mario Golf, no. Kirby 64, no. Bubsy 3D, no. Croc, no. Wild Arms, no. Any more guesses before we go on to image 2? Donkey Kong 64, no. From Classy Mr. Barto, his first time he's chatted on GameFace. Welcome to the crew, Classy Mr. Barto.
Yeah, that doesn't look. That looks like PS1 to me.
GoldenEye, no.
No, this isn't greasy enough to be an N64 game. I don't think.
There's not enough Vaseline smeared over it. Elden Ring, no. Sonic 1, no. Smash Brothers Melee, no. Tomb Raider, no. All right, I think we're ready for image 2. And here it is.
Katamari Damacy.
Ding, ding, ding. Matt won again. Awesome job, Matt. I waited a beat to see if anybody else guessed it, and nobody did. And you got it right. Stucky guessed it, but I don't know if he heard you, and then he guessed it. But yes, it is Katamari Damacy. And I now realize, actually, you still did really good to guess that. But I do realize that that was a horrible second screenshot now. It gave away way too much.
Yeah, I mean, only because I remember that's part of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I visually recognize that location.
I should not have shown as much
If you don't know the game, then I don't think you'd guess that.
Maybe not. But I think I did a bad job.
It doesn't give away a lot of the mechanical element. I don't think this is a shot that gives away stuff to someone who hasn't played Katamari extensively.
Oh, definitely not. I think in general, to win at this, you have to have played the game.
Yeah.
I think. Here's the third one. I didn't know if maybe that would have given it away because of some of the objects. The objects in this are very repetitive. Mm-hmm. So if there's like 20 of them generally that you end up like sucking onto your ball. Haha. And so if you know some of the items that were typical of this game, that would have given it away. Here's the fourth image. There you can actually see the top of the ball of junk. Mm-hmm. And that might have given it away. And then
the fences are iconic.
Yeah, they are. Yep. That's another object that always got wrapped up. And then here's the last image. If you wouldn't have got it on this, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. King of all cosmos, rainbow vomit.
Puke in the rainbow. Yep. So again,
to this day, I cannot believe that one of the cutscenes is like the kids talking, and one of them goes like the king of all cosmos rolled it all up, and then he destroyed the thing he just made. Rich people sure are different. Yeah. And I'm like, how is the rich people sure are different thing not a meme? Like, how did that not catch fire?
That's pretty great. So Matt, you've won now twice in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're on a run. That's amazing.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's great. You hadn't won for quite a while towards the end of the year there. Our users were on quite a run, winning week in and week out, and now you've kind of turned the tables a little bit, which is awesome. Let's see. Somebody just gave us some Tier 1 subs. JM Rain, thank you, man, for gifting more Tier 1 subs. You do this almost every week without fail. Thank you so much, man, for helping out the people in our chat. By the way, if he gives you those Tier 1 subs and you are not a patron to Sifted, you now have a week's early access to Pactor Factor, which you may not have had before. If you're someone who watches Pactor Factor on YouTube, if you get gifted a Tier 1 sub here in our Twitch chat, you can now go to our Twitch channel and watch Pactor Factor a week early, which you also get if you subscribe with Twitch Prime, which we talk about all the time. JM Rain, thank you, by the way. You're awesome, man. You've always been good to us and to our sifters, the people in our chat. And I hope you're doing great.
I do remember when Katamari first came out, the first time I put it into the PS2, Blair Butler was my roommate at the time because we just moved to LA and she needed somewhere to stay until she found her own place. And she went and was taking a shower, and I put the game in, and the intro played, and I just turned it back off and waited until she came back out. I'm like, I waited for you because you have to see this.
It is great. Like, I wish there were more games like that.
As soon as the geese came out from the sides and sang along, I'm like, oh, I need to wait for Blair.
I wish there were more games like that. A lot of stuff like that has just gone away, unfortunately, in the industry, or their indie stuff. Like the Goose game was kind of.
Goose game's in that range.
We get stuff here and there.
That one was also one of those things where it's like, we used to do the weird game segment, especially back in San Francisco, where you have to go get import games from Network Video and Burlingame and stuff, and Japan Video, because they didn't come here.
Yeah.
And the fact that Katamari made it here was part of its novelty.
Yeah.
That was that was exactly one of those games that would never come to America.
Back in the day.
And here it was.
And there it was. Yep. And it was a hit.
Yeah.
It did great. So I'll be bringing back more retro games for Name That Game here in the future. I think they're kind of more fun, honestly. And I think you can be, from my perspective, I can be a little more sly because the texturing and stuff back then looked the same across a lot of games because a lot of it was just flat textures. So it's different now with like all the different effects that are in games. Sometimes you can cue into, oh, that's the shaders from this game that I played a ton from. The older games, it's harder to track stuff like that. So I think we'll be doing more of that going into the future. JM Rain, also thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime for 44 months. That is amazing, man. Okay, we're going to do some Q&A. We have some time because, once again, we got it on like the second image. Things are where you guys are both doing good. Both you and Matt have been killing it the last couple weeks. Swanland, Matt, have you seen Skinamarink? If so, what are your thoughts?
I have not.
No?
Nope.
What is it?
The movie.
About?
I don't know much more than that.
Oh, okay.
I've just heard it mentioned.
Is it do you know if it's a horror movie?
I think it's a horror movie, yeah.
Swanland, I think, is a big gorehound like me, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's a horror movie. Mike's Q says he knew that it was Katamari Damacy and something timed out. And
I think it was slow mode.
Oh, you'd already guessed and you had to wait for it to come back. That's why you'd make sure your guesses count. Eve Demon, have either of you checked out Steam Next Fest? We talked about it in the open. You must have showed up a little late. We mentioned that it's going on next week. Has any demo caught your eye? Yeah, the System Shock remake demo.
System Shock remake demo, and in terms of recommendations, Midnight Suns demo.
No, yeah.
Everyone try Midnight Suns because they need help.
They need the help, yep. Grimshaw rocks. How successful would a Blue Point remake of Dark Souls 1 be? I mean, they did a damn good job on Demon Souls.
Yeah, they did a good job on Demon's. I mean, I would argue that maybe not. Actually, do we even know?
It needs remade. It's pretty.
I mean, the current version of it, not really. Like, because the Prepare to Die redo, they already kind of did remake it. Like there was an updated version.
Like they created new models and stuff like that?
Some of it was, I think, yeah. It was not just a pure remaster.
Oh, okay.
Maybe, I don't know. Like, I feel like they got better things to do.
I think it would sell well.
It would probably sell okay, but also Blue Point is owned by Sony, and what they should do is do a remake of Bloodborne.
Right.
As a Sony property.
But that doesn't really need to be remade yet.
No, but if you're gonna
they'll do it someday, though.
If you're gonna remake a Souls game or one of the From games, it would probably be that one because Blue Point is in house now.
Yeah.
But I would rather see Blue Point do other stuff that is not playable on modern. So, like, Blue Point's got better things to do than remake Dark Souls again. Let's move on from Dark Souls. Okay. It's Elden Ring now. We're all Elden Ring people.
It's the new
now.
hot shit. Mike's Q, have either of you played more Hi-Fi Rush? I've seen nothing but good things from people about it. Yeah, I have continued to play it.
Yeah, it's good. It's really good. I still don't really have any complaints about it.
I have a bunch of games that I'm like right at the end of finishing, and I keep jumping around, and this is one of the games I've been jumping around, although I'm not at the end of this yet. So, yes, I have continued to play it. Justin Horman, thank you for subscribing at Tier 2 for 68 months. You're on a 68-month streak. That's insane. Like, I think you are the longest streak. I even have missed, like, giving us my Twitch Prime, because I'm also an Amazon Prime member, and I can give us a free $250 every month like everybody else, and I even don't have a 68-month streak.
Yeah,
so
there's definitely people in that range of months total, but I don't know.
Not a streak, man. Thank you, Justin. That is so awesome, man. And I'm guessing what he's done is he's set an alert in his phone to go and do it every month. And that's what a lot of people do, have the long streaks. And if you notice, in Pactor Factor, when it runs along the bottom, the thing that we run are your streaks. Who has the longest streak? I don't know if anyone will ever catch Justin Horman. That's just amazing. Thank you, man. Sneaky, what game did Matt win for his new PC? Oh, Matt doesn't get the games. No. We don't get any rewards. We just play along with you guys for fun. So, yeah, Matt wonon't get anything for
My reward is that you don't get one.
Matt's reward is Schadenfreude. Squishy Muffin, with Switch sales surpassing PS4 and Game Boy, are you impressed, or do you think it's only that number because there's no separate handheld console and a lot of people didn't buy the Wii U before? Do you think the successor will match the Switch's success? I'll answer your last question first. No. I think the Switch will go down in history as Nintendo's last smash hit console. I think Switch sales are doing well. I don't think it has anything to do with it being the only handheld. I think it's a great platform. They're consistently releasing great games for it, and it has not let up 1 minute.
I think it has more to do with it has a lower price than the other consoles, and it's the thing you can buy more than one of and give to the kids, and they all have their own. I think you're seeing a lot of multi-Switch households.
I'd agree.
I think that's part of it.
I think it's also like the anti-Nintendo platform, because every Nintendo console going back to the N64 has been like this very sporadic first-party output. Like the N64, towards the end, you get like one exclusive every like 4 to 6 months. Like now, every month, there's something big that's exclusive to Switch that comes out. Like they've just... And that does tie into the fact that there aren't two separate platforms anymore. So maybe in that way, the handheld thing does matter, because they're not making game for a handheld and games for a console at the same time anymore. All their pipeline, their development pipeline, is unified towards one platform.
That Fire Emblem would have been a DS game.
Yep.
Like, for sure.
In the past.
Yeah.
But not anymore. Now it's a Switch game. So I think that's made a big difference as well. And also Nintendo has just continued to make great games. That's what it does best. And so it's just... I think it's Nintendo's ideas finally coming to fruition, because they're not trying to support two platforms at once, honestly. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons the Switch has been a success, though, but I think those are the primary reasons. Minority Games, what are your last thoughts on Forspoken? I personally enjoyed it. That what I just mentioned, I have like 3 or 4 games I'm like right at the end of. That's another one of them. I've also continued to play that. So I really liked it. I'm still really liking it. I'm still really enjoying it. And last note I would say is that I've continued to be surprised that I keep finding new stuff to do in the open world. The variety in the side missions and all the stuff you just kind of stumble upon, it just feels like every time I think I've seen it all, I'll stumble onto some new like mission type or whatever. So I think they did a great job with that stuff. I would still argue that the magic system still feels clunky at times, though.
Yeah, I went back to it a couple days ago, and I was astounded by how hard it was to remember how everything worked.
Yeah, because it's so different from other stuff. Yep.
And, I'm spoiled on frame rates now from like a week with that computer.
Oh,
and like
I bet.
Forspoken runs at like a 30-ish thing, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like it's barely moving. Like, I went from Spider-Man at like 120 frames a second to this thing, and it's like, oh, that's rough.
Yeah,
it's rough. I'd like to get more into it, but it's so blah to look at. Like, I wish there was more color.
Yeah, the open world there's not a lot of variety.
No.
Yep.
I wish it had kind of like an Okami thing, where when you kind of cleared an area narratively or even sideways,
it brought it back to life.
Yeah, it kind of came back to life and became like a more of a standard fantasy world sort of thing.
Yep, I can see that. Okay, we'll take one more because we got to go. We're already way over time. Zet Saber Juno, what's up, bro? Are there any genres you are sick of playing? Mine is FPSs, since I played too much of it during my childhood and I no longer find them interesting. Well, I think if you talk to a lot of people about our discussions last week, people would say that I'm sick of playing survival horror games. But I'm not. I'm really jacked up for Resident Evil 4. There are certain genres that haven't evolved as much as I would like, and I am a little bit tired of playing those. What about you, Matt?
First-person shooters are you gotta be real special for me to care about you as a first-person shooter these days. And I think horror games in general, I've never cared about horror games that much. I'm interested. Resident Evil 4, one of the reasons I like it so much is it's not really a survival horror game. It's just an action game.
It is, yeah. You know? That was kind of them stepping away from a lot of those tropes.
Which I think was a benefit, for sure. That
benefited not just Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Everybody.
But in terms of that, I'm tired of the run away from a thing, Outlast style horror game. I'm tired of the pixel art platformer indie game. I'm tired of the very sad people in a desolate landscape indie game, which is all of them. I'm also not tired of it, but I'm getting very picky about my Telltale style games. Like
narrative adventure,
the narrative. I guess narrative adventure would be what you call. Like you gotta get up a little. There's enough of them now that I'm a little more picky now. What I play. There was a time when I just play all of them
because there weren't enough. Like choose your own path. What I decide changes the outcome. Yeah. Now they're all that way.
Yeah.
Now that's just the way you make an adventure game. It used to be an exception. Now it's just accepted.
Yeah. Now it's just
the way it's
everywhere.
supposed to be. Yep. Okay.
So yeah, I think that would be that. There's more than you might think, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
man, we've been playing games for a long time, Matt, since the 70s. Like, it's amazing that we still have the passion that we do for games. A lot of people don't. A lot of people fall off, disappear. You have to be passionate or you can't do this. Otherwise, how do you rationalize spending 50 or 60 hours a week playing games? while you're also doing a job. Like, you can't, and you have to have the fire. And both of us have never lost it. So very fortunate that we're just this way. It's nothing that I've done that's made me this way.
Well, there are days. I always think of
when you're playing like mediocre games, it can be tough.
I always think of it was pretty soon after the lockdown ended, after the when we had our vaccines and everything was you can go out again, and we went to Disneyland, and at one point they were still doing the outdoor lines, and so the outdoor line for Space Mountain was snaking around Tomorrowland, and there was one of the cast members had like a big sign that said the line ends here, and the line was kind of growing faster than he could like move the sign to the end of the line to show where people are. And I guess some supervisor comes by and goes, you got to get out there, you got to get the sign. That's what tells people where the line is. You're the beacon. And like and he goes off, and the guy takes the sign, goes and walks like past us to the back of the line, and goes, not today.
That's great.
And I'm like, I don't think we're the only ones who heard him, but I'm just like, oh, that is one of the greatest. Yes. Awesome. Yes. Like, and I was like, I want to give that guy like some kind of prop or some kind of tip or like you can give like compliments, but there's no way I could think of to give that compliment in like their feedback system and not make it sound like he was doing the opposite of what a Disneyland employee is supposed to do. Like, there's no way to do it without getting him in trouble.
Right, yeah.
But like, it was, to this day, I think about that. Like, you're the beacon. Not today.
That's awesome. Okay.
There are days when you're playing a game that makes you
not
say
today.
That.
You're like, there's times I've had it's work. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You have to play it even though you don't want to. That's the way it is.
Looking at you, Star Ocean.
Yep. So that's it for GameFace 329. Before we go, don't forget our sponsor, LS Cream. Go to creamls.com. That's where you can learn about the history of the product. It's actually a recipe from his Haitian grandmother. And also, I would like to remind you that Valentine's Day and alcohol go great together. Now, I'm not telling you to do something shady or anything, but if you're going out with your girl for Valentine's Day and you mix her up a drink with LS Cream, the night might end a little better than you might expect.
I'm just picturing someone bringing LS Cream for like bottle service.
Pulling it out of their pants at the club or whatever.
Yeah, uncork that for me. Garcin.
Yep. Go to creamls.com and order yourself some for Valentine's
Fill up the
Day.
wine glass with a cream liqueur. Pairs well with a ribeye.
If you're watching this show on YouTube or you're listening to it on any of the podcast services and you're not helping us out financially, that's cool. But you can still do something to help us even if you don't have any money. Just subscribe with Twitch Prime. The instructions for doing that are down in the description. It's very easy. Or just re-up with Twitch Prime. We started including a clip in Impactor Factor showing people how quick it is to resubscribe with Twitch Prime, and it's 3 seconds. If you can't spend 3 seconds to give us free money, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Come on, you can do it. I know you can. And if you do want to help us, if you do have money...
Turn Mr. Rogers for a second there. You can do it. I knew you could.
You can do it. If you do have some money and you want to help us, head to patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. And you can pledge whatever you want per month. You can give us $1, you can give us $100, whatever. There's different tiers there, different rewards for the tiers. It's all that kind of fun stuff that Patreon is all about. But that is what really helps us, is if we can rely on that revenue coming every month, whereas Twitch Prime is erratic. In fact, it's been erratic in a bad way for the last 5 months. Our numbers are so down. That's why I started putting the clip in Impactor Factor, because people would stop resubscribing. I'm like, bro, it's so easy. Come on, help us out. So anyway, head to patreon.com/sifted if you really want to help us, but you can also do it with Twitch Prime. And again, that's down in the description. So Matt, another great episode of GameFace. Thank you. Luna, who is now passed out because apparently to her, we're boring AF. Thank you for being our co-host. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. GameFace is up and out.